This is our Cupra versus VW comparison. So should you go for a Cupra or for a Volkswagen, we have the following pairs here: the Cupra Terramar versus the VW Tiguan, the Cupra Formentor versus the Volkswagen T-Roc, the Cupra Leon versus the Golf, here as Leon VZ and Golf R, and the Cupra Tavascan versus the ID5 and the ID4. So these are all the siblings. Let's see how they compare, and later on tell you which one would we actually go for, and you also tell us which one would you pick overall. Let's go. Today driving of the first ever Cupra Terramar, and you need to watch this because this vehicle is very interesting. It is built together in the same plant in Hungary with the upcoming Audi Q3, the new generation. It's also a sister model, technology-wise, to the VW Tiguan in the new generation. And also, wait a minute, the size is not too different from the Cupra Formentor. So how different is it to the Cupra Formentor? Answers to all of these questions today here in this review. It's Thomas on Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with a very fresh, sporty and modern front. It looks almost sports car alike here with these cooling holes. And you see they do collect a lot of stuff. So there's always a pro and con about this, definitely. Graphene gray is this color here for today. I think it's really cool because it's not a matte color, but it looks a little bit matte-ish. There are, however, also matte colors available for this very vehicle here. Well, then the Cupra logo always has this tribal style, or as you might also think of, this is the mark of Sauron. Yeah, maybe you thought of that as well. Like, then the headlamps here, you can optionally get a HD matrix LED. It's also the ones you can see here. And interesting structure also in this Triforce style. Always remember me of like Zelda, Triforce, Ganon and so on if you are familiar with the Nintendo world. And even more interesting is when you hit the turning indicators, for example, how they replace this very structure. And even more interesting when you put like the welcoming and goodbye light signature when you open the vehicle or when you then later on close it again. You always get a very cool light show, and that appears both in the front and probably even more so spectacular in the rear. So we did some cool shots there in the basement garage for you that you can better see that. So they play a lot with light. In that respect, you might say, oh, wait a minute, where is it again built? Yeah, in Hungary together with the Audi Q3. And you know, Audi has positioned themselves so hey, like we are the light brand. Cupra now follows in these footsteps and also wants to do a lot with lighting technology. But here I think it works pretty well. And the HD matrix LED, they can even project things on the ground for assistance systems and so on. Then wheels from 18 to 20 inch. These are the biggest 20-inch wheels. And when you have a VZ version, you can also get Akebono special brakes, like performance brakes. You can also see them right here, pretty massive. Again, 20-inch wheels. We see how it reacts from the comfort and so on, because this one here also gets the DCC Pro, new dynamic chassis control. That's the adaptive suspension. They have introduced it with the Tiguan and the Passat. And this has a 2-valve technology. So like in both ways, you can rule them individually, and that promises more comfort and sportiness at the same time. Does it work, especially with this wheel configuration? We're going to find out. 18-inch it would start, so if you want even more rolling comfort, you would go 18 or 19-inch. If you don't spec the optional DCC, by the way, then this vehicle here always comes standard with a sport suspension. And the suspension is always 10 millimeters lower than the VW Tiguan, for example. So clearly they want to position it sportier than the Tiguan, but less sporty than the Formentor. So that is like this niche in between. Interesting, isn't it? But yeah, also in the driving part, we're going to find out if Sauron will actually pick the Terramar over the Tiguan today. The length here, by the way, is 4 meters 52 or 178 inches. And that is actually not too different from the Tiguan, but also not too different from the Formentor. It's just like 7 centimeters or 3 inches difference to the Formentor in length. So you might ask yourself, why are they doing that actually? It's a little bit positioned price-wise also above the Formentor, then size-wise, and it's also the newer platform. So this is supposed to be more upmarket, more sophisticated than the Formentor. But does that really work? We're going to find out then when testing more of the interior stuff, and of course also testing the driving later on. Then there's also the Seat Ateca or the Cupra Ateca, which is even a little bit more older platform. And Cupra actually says that the Ateca will at some point, run out, and the Formentor and this one here, the Terramar, they want to have them both at the same time, a little bit different target group, but yeah, we're going to find out more about that very soon. Then in the rear, once again, light strip goes through, pretty cool here with the Sauron logo or Cupra logo. And I have to say, yeah, this light strip on the rear is actually the coolest thing about this vehicle. But why not? Why not? Then you see here, you have the strong diffuser style in the lower part. And wait a minute. Is that a case for the Autogefühl fake exhaust police? Maybe it doesn't really pretend to be an exhaust pipe, but let's say it maybe pretends to be a fake exhaust. Let's take it that way. Yeah, tell me what do you think about this? Maximum towing capacity, by the way, if you have a strong petrol version, is 2.2 tons. And this would also be the version for that, because this is here the all-wheel drive version, and means here front plus rear on demand. It's a front wheel based platform. If you have an all-wheel drive, then on demand power is also sent to the rear wheels. Beep, 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 because the lights are on here in the front. So let's take a look under the engine. They have reduced the choice here a little bit in comparison to the Tiguan. So what they, for example, do not do is offering a diesel. So there is no diesel here for the Cupra Terramar, although it is available in the plant, let's take it that way. This one here is the strongest petrol engine, 2-liter TSI, 265 horsepower, also the VZ version, as Cupra calls it, 5.9 seconds in the acceleration figure. This is the quickest one. Then you would also get actually a lower horsepower figure for this very engine, and also as entry-level engine has a 1.5 TSI, either with mild hybrid, 150 horsepower front-wheel drive. And based on that one, the 1.5 is also the plug-in hybrid with a reasonably sized 20 kWh net battery. So this also gives you a decent pure electric range. And that one has two different horsepower outputs. And the stronger one, 272 horsepower, is the second quickest in the lineup with 7.3 seconds in the acceleration figure. Key fob here without these stickers, just for the launch event. But yeah, high gloss black. At least you get a Cupra logo. Then door closing sounds. Really solid in the front. In the rear, it doesn't sound so good. So with most vehicles recently, we had it that the rear door closing sound was mostly better than the front one. Here it's the other way around. Oh, and here, these like rubber lips here in the lower part of the windows doesn't speak for the best quality, honestly. Also doesn't look that good. So yeah, there we found two things that can be improved, definitely. Then inside of the doors, peep, peep, peeps, because the light is on. Then here we see some structure and also somewhat soft touch here on the top of the door. That looks nice. Then we have these copper accentuations right there, and yeah, or rose gold as Leah would call it. But also nice here with the lever integrated ambient lighting. You already see it from here. There are many features about that coming up later in the review. Then Cupra entry badge. Leah was already there, but I want to show here the like the inside of those in the lower part. This is all hard pack, so this is not covered at all. The Tiguan had that, right? I think the Tiguan had fabric soft covers. Then steering wheel, so far no alternative to animal skin available there, but cool that we have copper accentuations once again as contrast stitches. And you have the drive mode selector at the steering wheel. That's better than in the Tiguan. I like that I can easily switch the driving mode also in the steering wheel, and rear buttons on the steering wheel for volume, for the cruise control, and so on. Then seats, always these bucket seats. Integrated head restraints, and then you can either get this one here, the Dynamica microfiber, or base would be just fabric, and optionally they still offer animal skin. If you ask me, which one should you go comfort-wise for? I mean, they have a good, comfortable ergonomic actually that fits also to tall drivers. 189, 6'2", a lot of headroom left. This one, the version without a panoramic roof here at this moment. I would say if you want those which stay coolest in summer, then go for the base fabric surface, in the middle part. These are then a little bit hotter maybe in summer, and the hottest would be the animal skin. Here, electric control, there we go, back and forth, and also with a memory seat. But you find a good seating position, and
the seat is a little bit short.
Yeah, maybe the seat is sometimes a little bit short here in the front. Yeah, so I feel that the Tiguan seat is a little bit longer than for longer legs. That's the thing. But if you compare it to the Formentor, this one here feels more SUV, whereas the Formentor feels a little bit more crossover-ish. And then steering wheel moves up and down, in and out, and you see here all the stall columns move together with that here for the indicators and the wipers, and the right side is then here for the gear selection, like in the VW electric models, reverse and drive like that.
I like that.
Yeah, Leah actually really likes that, also from the ID3 or something like that. So it's actually everything is fairly easy and straightforward to control here. Cockpit overview, really very prominent, is 13-inch screen, also always in that size here. Soon details to that. Then the dashboard here is also somewhat like a little bit light colored, I would say, like not plain black, also with the structure. Then here also interesting structure, you can also hear that. And it is a very busy design, definitely. Here, probably dampened as well, with another like, like, why are you supposed to put in there? I'm not sure.
Sunglass?
Yeah, but then sunglasses fly around there. So if you have any ideas what you could put there, maybe not tissues, I don't know. Here, once again, these very nice air vents. Oh, listen to that. Clicking sounds from the air vents on and off. So it's beautifully done. But you see that in comparison to the Tiguan, this uses so many more different elements in design. Look at that. Different color, different color, different color, different color, different material, another material, another material, another material. So, so many color choices and material choices, even if it's just different nuances. So, yeah, as I said, the design is busy. It's more screaming out. It is more like, hey, we want to be young, fresh, not that settled like in the Tiguan. And that's a matter of preference, what you actually prefer. So, to me, it's sometimes maybe a little bit too much. But then again, I found like for example, the copper elements here. This is actually quite cool, I feel. Then also here, soft touch for your elbow. This is soft enough. Then you have a lot of space underneath, actually. And also a 12-volt power supply. Adaptive cup holders here in the front. And then we have an inductive charging pad, which is also cooled. But you see the material easily looks pretty used, actually, 2 USB-C chargers here as well. And also, if you want to deactivate the electronic stability control, there's a very easily accessible button. Although, of course, when driving it on the road, it doesn't need to be that accessible, honestly. By the way, here with 189 6x2, there's still some headroom left, so no problem in the front. This, however, here, the one without the panoramic roof, there is also a version available with panoramic roof. Ambient lighting in the dark. Really spectacular, goes all the way around the cockpit, and even inside of the doors here shines through. And when I activate the hazard lights, look at that now. Ooh, there we go. Also use the ambient lighting. Yeah, we might remember that from BMWs recently. And even here, this shining through effect here also applies to the hazard lights. So that's pretty cool. Then we have even more things. So wait for it here. The mode button. So here at this moment I have set the ambient lighting connected to the driving modes. When I go to performance, already changes right here, goes to red, and the Cupra mode has also like orangish color. And here also special, when I now hit the RPM with the throttle, even when stationary. Look at that. Rom. What do you think of that feature here? Driver POV, once again the steering wheel with the easy controls here, left and right. So you could also change, for example, the views here in the infotainment system. And yeah, that's everything easy and visible. I like the big RPM meter, definitely that view. And you can also get this head-up display. Then the central infotainment system. As for the climate unit, you have to go here, left and right, swipers for the AC unit. Everything else you control here in the screen. Yeah, at least you have these swipers and don't have to do it directly in the screen. But there are better physical solutions you have maybe seen or survey also lately. And then you have this main menu. It's a good overview. They have now put a better hardware CPU behind that one if you compare it to other of the vehicles. So that's actually more or less fine. And interesting is always, of course, that you here can switch the driving modes, but you can also do it from the steering wheel. So here you can switch it through like this. By the way, if you're in the comfort mode and then press and hold the Cupra button, then you see it directly hops to the Cupra mode. And this is the CarPlay integration like that. Looks quite cool. We did have some issues here today when sometimes when we switch from the main infotainment and back to CarPlay again, sometimes it was like a black screen and we had to do it again. So there are still some minor software issues here and there. And Leah's inside handles check. Can she hold tight when Thomas is driving like crazy again? Yes, it's possible, so no cost savings there. Also properly dampened and even in the rear. So we have both rear and the front handles, so no matter where you sit, you're safe from Thomas crazy driving. Then rear seats. On the top part there's hard plastic, however it is structured here. My hair? Yeah, but it's like all the girls always say they like curly Thomas. But then the guys say like, curly Thomas looks like too wild, please fix your hair, you need a haircut and so on. It's interesting how it's like split, you know, but yeah, vote for or against curly Thomas in the comments, please now. Most important topic for today, definitely. But I would like to know from Leah now, does the copper accentuation, or as she would call it, rose gold, fit to the new Apple Watch? Maybe a little bit. A little bit, right? So I'm smelling this could be her car, but I'm still skeptical. So there needs to be more convincing from the car to convince me, right? And then let's take a look here at the comfort and so on. So you see, it's not too much space for my legs actually. There is this recess here at the back part of the seat. So this does fit, but only with a recess, because these seats here, these integrated sports seats, integrated head restraint sports seats are really voluminous. They take away knee room. Maybe more space than in the Formentor, but not plenty for when you are driving as a tall driver. And then here, headroom with 189, 602. This is actually no problem, so there's a lot of headroom left. Then also good quality materials here at the back of the microfiber and the high grade leatherette, that's fine. Isofix on the outside seats. Here we can also move that bench. We're soon also going to show you how that affects the trunk, because you get more trunk length and volume by that. Or of course folded, then here with these straps. And the thing is, these mechanisms that it like gets fixed in here might be good on the one hand and practical, on the other hand, and of course, and you might have experienced a similar situation, we also had it, and when someone puts it down and then the other one doesn't really know about that fixation and comes, okay, I'll fold it up again and okay, yeah, that happened, you know, a lot of times for us while shooting. So you then have to unleash it here again, or unlock it. Isengard unleashed. So here, there we go. Yeah, and then it's fixed again on the upright position here. Adaptive cup holders, that's really nice here in the middle console. So there you see also this little bit step up, more sophistication than with the Formentor. And here, this and the ski hatch, you fold down. But overall, I mean, it's cozy here. Minus then the legroom that could be a little bit longer. Oh, nice, by the way, here also these like copper accentuations at the vents. And also, oh, they have clicking sounds when you put them left to right. That's opening and closing them actually. And two USB-C chargers. Let's check out the trunk or the boot. Opening it here from below. 530 liter in the standard setup. Then here the cabin trolley fits also in vertically, no problem. It's a meter of 40 inches in width, and the normal length here is about 88 centimeters or 35 inches. See here, I already folded 2/3. There's also ski hatch folding available, and the total length here is 170 in meters or 67 inches. Underneath here, I can also lift that one. The plug-in hybrid would have a little bit less in the liter setup. Here is also with a subwoofer. Replacement tire would also theoretically be possible. And if you read different liter figures out there, the reason for that is it varies depending on the rear bench. So when I put it a little bit more forward like this here, then you have more trunk length here, and then also this boot volume number is a little bit higher. To fold the seats, by the way, that's why I did it before. Folding from here, it's not really possible. You have to go around then and do it and from the rear to fold them here. Cupra mode. So a good acceleration here from standstill, and 5.9 seconds is the official figure. I'm gonna check the time codes if this one was actually correct. This one here driving the 265 horsepower version of the 2-liter TSI. So this is a top horsepower version, also the most powerful one, not in the horsepower sense, but in the acceleration sense, because the other one would then be the 272 horsepower plug-in hybrid. But this one here, of course, always has the best acceleration figure because it is way lighter than the plug-in hybrid, and always has the power no matter in what situation. It is not dependent on how the status of the battery actually is. So essentially, this is here also a new Tiguan technology-wise, or upcoming Audi Q3, and you feel that in some aspects. We've also mentioned the interior part, like here the shifting lever and so on. But since the design is so different on the interior, then again it says like, yeah, maybe it is something different. But driving-wise, it's definitely very interesting to find out some of the differences. So what I've done here is they use the same technology, yes, but try to make the car a little bit sportier, and it's probably also one of the reasons they don't offer a diesel version here. Here in the Cupra mode, we also have the DCC Pro, a little bit stiffer. So it's still, since it's like this adaptive suspension with the new 2-valve system, this is also new to this generation here. Also, if you compare like a new Tiguan to the previous generation Tiguan, this new DCC Pro has a wider span between comfort and sport here. So although we are in the sports mode here, the suspension is doing also a good job as for the comfort. So sometimes when we have adaptive suspensions, you might say, hey, I want to just switch the mode very quickly again because maybe a sport mode is uncomfortable or something like that. But here it's actually totally fine. So I could drive all day actually also in the comfort mode. Then let's do some lane change here, left to right. It's really nice. So it drives very well. It feels really small, it feels compact, and it feels a little bit more agile than the Tiguan, and that is probably due to the suspension setup. Or Leah, what would you say? Yeah, would you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's really good to ask her, because I mean, sometimes I say like, wind noise is like this, and she's like, nah, that's really loud, you know. So it's good when we both agree. That's actually always good, right? Yeah. On everything, almost everything. Yeah, but indeed, it feels a little bit more agile. That's also what they wanted to achieve. So although it's not really smaller, it feels a little bit smaller than the Tiguan does. And it's cool that I can also switch through the driving modes here from the steering wheel. I love that. So we're here in the Cupra mode. And then the only thing a little bit maybe irritates me, but you can argue pro and con here. It doesn't change here. So it only shows me a small symbol then in the instruments there in the front, which driving mode I'm actually in. Now I'm going back to the normal comfort mode. If you want to follow that, you would have to, click here on the button itself and go for the, and that's the thing, doing that drive profile though. So there we are. And then I can see like which mode I'm actually in. But you can also remember these pictograms, which stands for which mode, and then go back to that one again. So here in the comfort mode, it gives me a little bit more floating comfort from suspension. So suspension is definitely already one of the most favorite things here about this vehicle. I can already tell you that this new DCC Pro is really good. There were also some comments and questions like, does that one create a special humming noise in the vehicle? And so far we have not experienced that. So also here at 1 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour on the motorway, I don't feel that this car would be any noisy from suspension, from bumps or something like that. Maybe we can test it later again, where we have some bumps in the road or something, but here on the motorway, it's actually nice and silent. So it feels like a good motorway vehicle, actually, from the suspension characteristics, also from the noise insulation and so on. The steering is also pretty cool because it's really direct. The progressive steering is also standard for this vehicle, so you don't have to go for that one optional. What does progressive steering mean? It means that you don't have to steer too much to actually do the same thing you want to achieve. So when I'm here doing the lane change, you see fine commands are transported, and then it goes a little bit more progressive to the outside. When I'm doing some steering to the outside, it increases like what the wheels are doing. So you don't have to like steer it all the way around just to do one corner or something like that. And it's working very well. But here also in the comfort mode, that's again this DCC Pro. What is that? What the? Huh? She was like wildly gesturing and shouting with the window down for something like, I don't know. Interesting. Yeah. Welcome to Spain, I guess. So yeah, our Spanish fans also mention that quite often to us, that this is actually something pretty normal. I've heard. Well, in Germany, like the language of abuse on the motorway is rather like, you know, driving so close to one each other, not talking, but just showing with the vehicle, with the force. Of course, very dangerous that you are like the strongest on the road. But of course, all aggression on the road is pretty useless. Yeah, can't say that I'm totally immune to that when I'm being provoked, but you always have to try to like calm yourself. Like, no, this is not the place where you should carry out your fights. Definitely. Dia says like, yeah, okay, and last time you had the 8-cylinder and then accelerated all the way through to 200 to revenge yourself. Yeah, sorry, guilty for that. Sometimes I try to use the quick cars also to show that I'm not getting bullied on the road, you know, so, but yeah. Always, of course, in the safe manner. But this car really tempts you also to drive sporty, but without being too exaggerated. And there's the big question about the Cupra Formentor, because the size difference is not too large, and yeah, you can really raise the question like, why do they put two cars out there that are really, really similar? This one here is on a newer platform, together with the all-new VW Tiguan. So this one, for example, gets the DCC Pro, has a little bit more space, a little bit larger, and so on. So this one here is, let's say, the higher positioned vehicle. But I have to say, I do feel the comfort difference from the suspension. So yes, this suspension here does feel more sophisticated. Yeah, you feel that it's more upmarket. But it's not like that would say, hey, that's why I would pay double the price for the Terramar than for the Formentor. So the thing is that sometimes they give very good leasing rates, like in the recent years, to the Formentor. So you can still go for the Formentor if you have a very, very great deal, and if this one would be like super, super expensive or something like that. And 120 kilometers on the motorway here in Spain, 70 miles an hour, so that's approximately like that, and still really smooth, and also silent. It's extremely windy outside today here, especially on that motorway here. There was like a wind indicator next to the road. It was going crazy, but super relaxing. So this can indeed do both. So the performance, by the same time also that relaxing part. And I really have to say, when we started our journey here today, I was thinking, yeah, there's a difference here. There's like this wind indicator. There is a difference. Actually, what was there, like an electric windmill to power the? I don't know. Maybe our guys from Barcelona can enlighten us on that. So I first thought that the difference between the Formentor and the Terramar is there, but maybe not the largest ones. But the more you drive this vehicle here, the more you really feel that there is a very notable difference. This one here is more sophisticated. It's more silent. It drives just better, especially with the DCC Pro. So yes, a higher price here for the Terramar is definitely justified, not only because it's a little bit larger, but also it is the more like higher positioned vehicle. It really feels premium in driving, gotta say that. And for the Formentor, it's more that, hey, you get maybe like a good deal, a good price for a very decent vehicle, and it drives well and so on. But this one really tops the Formentor, so you can understand that they not only want to cannibalize the existing target group, but they want, probably cannibalize the Tiguan. Not sure if the VW guys will like that, but of course also from outside the VW corporation, because what we recently heard, like an old friend of mine, he actually said like, I always used to drive BMWs, now the prices are just insane, and now I drive Cupra, so that might be a thing if you want to drive something fancier, but at the same time you don't want to pay Audi, BMW, Mercedes prices. It's not that the price would be low for this one, but still, if you get a good leasing deal, it's probably in most cases then, still cheaper than Audi, BMW, Mercedes, because their prices are meanwhile gone through the roof. So this might also be something, and here once again, even at some higher speeds on the motorway, you can easily enjoy that. Of course, if you guys fancy we can of course at some point repeat that test here with really, really high speeds on the German Autobahn. Deactivating this speed warning while driving, by the way, is possible, this new EU law. So either you're here in the vehicle menu and driver alerts, speed warning here on and off, or you can also press a button here at the steering wheel and then scroll with your right thumb and go to speed warning, then it's also deactivated. So they found two ways which are not too complicated to do. So yeah, I think that's fine. Then we also have, of course, adaptive cruise control. Here we have also installed the most sophisticated setting. You can also do here with the left thumb to set, and the distance to the car in front of us is being kept. And we can also, for example, increase or decrease the distance. And also with the same button here, I can then decide if it's just a normal ACC speed limiter, or if I go to the travel assist, like with the VWs. And then with the travel assist, it also does here the keeping in the lane. I'm supposed to keep the hands at the steering wheel. Now when we go to tunnel, we can also see some of the ambient lighting that goes away around here, like a river hoop, you call it, with a boat, with a yacht, for example. And here you can also see, a little bit stuck in the traffic jam here, that the steering does just slide and smooth commands. And that's also the thing when you have this new platform, all the other technology stuff besides the hardware of suspension is all more sophisticated. So here also the assistance systems are more sophisticated. You can see here it takes a slight bend, and it's also keeping it centered in a lane. Although I'm now moving over to the right a little bit to make space for a suicide motorcyclist. Yeah, but you see here very smooth also as for the assistance system. Blind spot monitor, there we go. So it's integrated actually here in this ambient lighting. That's nice. There we can see, yeah, this is pretty cool actually. It's slight integration, maybe not as visible when it would be in the side mirror there, but it's actually a cool idea, definitely. And some agile driving now here. Okay, this is in the Cupra mode, the sound actuation. I don't know. Not sure how much you hear from that on the camera, but honestly, doesn't sound so good. In the Cupra mode, it's always on. You can go to an individual mode and then like set everything to sporty, but deactivate the sound emulation. That would be possible, but in the Cupra mode, it is on. It's also like, I don't know, it sounds really artificial. So actually I'm not a fan of that one. In the performance mode, you still have performance, but see here the sound emulation is not as strong. Yeah, I would say this is maybe not the best thing. However, the handling itself is actually pretty decent. So here, DCC in that sport modes is a little bit stiffer. At the same time, it's not getting rough or something. Steering feel is really nice, so you don't have to steer too much with that progressive steering. And the car actually also does exactly what you expect from it. And here also, once again, you feel the difference between the Formentor and the Terramar. So here I'm way more relaxed in these winding corners. And when you may remember, we were driving agile in the Formentor, and that was way more engaging. So for a driver, actually more fun. For you?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
So the Formentor was more fun for me to drive as a driver because it was like sportier, more engaging. This one here more relaxed and more comfort. So
better for the passenger.
So you feel this is better for the passenger here? Because sometimes we have cars that are a little bit sportier, and then it's sometimes better for the passenger because you don't get like this motion sickness or something. But here, do you feel better here or in the Formentor?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's the comfort thing then from the suspension and so on. But definitely if you want a more driver-focused car and more sporty driving fun, then you would stick with the Formentor. And if you want more comfort and also more comfort for your passengers, then you would go here with the Terramar. And fuel economy is not too good, honestly. So when we did more like cruise control motorway, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, we were a little bit less than 8 liters on 100 kilometers. So about 30 mpg US, 35 mpg UK. However, if you also take into account some acceleration, also some city traffic, it even jumped to about 10 liters on 100 kilometers. So that is then rather like 23 mpg US or 28 mpg UK. Pricing starts from 43,000 euros, so we already have the German example prices, and up to a little bit more, over 60,000 euros if you go strongest engine, highest trim, extras, wheels, performance brakes and so on as it stands here right now. And then of course it's not like a cheap offer at all. And also the price difference to the Formentor is, when you compare the base versions, at least 3,000 euros. But then if you compare top trim, would be like 55 to like 63. So then the price difference can be from 3,000 to 8,000 euros Formentor to the Terramar. So you see it's positioned higher also pricing wise. And yeah, it kind of works. It is a more sophisticated vehicle, but it's also, let's say, less a driver's vehicle. So it is fun to drive. It is a little bit stiffer in the setup than the Tiguan, also a little bit sporty oriented from the setup, telling me 10 millimeters lower. But then again, the Formentor is more engaging to drive, sportier. This one here brings more comfort, especially with the new DCC Pro. More sophistication in the suspension, also less loud, so more silent on the motorway at higher speeds. This one gives you more a relaxed SUV feeling, whereas the Formentor gives you more the modern, sporty crossover touch than at a lower price. And yeah, Cupra has been like firing out these Cupra Formentors at really good leasing ratios. I'm really looking forward how they will position this one here in the leasing wise, but definitely the way will make it more expensive than the Formentor, obviously. Sometimes the naming can be a little bit confusing, but I hope that we could bring you a little bit like closer to understanding what is the different positioning of the car. Clear is that you can take this one also as a very good Tiguan replacement if you think, yeah, I like the Tiguan concept, space-wise and so on, but I want it a little bit more spiced up. And then you can also go for the Sauron Terramar or Cupra Terramar. Now, check in with the Formentor review and of course the direct brother, the Tiguan. Today we're taking the all-new VW Tiguan to the German Autobahn and see what is it made of. How good is the new generation? We'll find out everything about that with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the front. This color here, pretty cool actually. And yeah, I tried to match the outfit once again. This is a Urano gray. This is the unique color. There's also a metallic gray available if you like it. And did you know that, for example, in Germany, gray is actually the most bought car color? Yeah, very interesting. Then black, white, and then the real colors. The front here, look at that, the light strip. Now here outside, then there's a light strip in the middle part to connect it. And this is also the R-line, the sportier look. And you can see here there's this open design, a lot of high gloss black as contrast. We've just been to the car wash and there you can see that the rest of the water drops, they tend to gather here in these more complex design elements, definitely. But this gives definitely a more sporty look to the Tiguan overall. Wheels from 17 to 20 inch. And these are indeed the biggest 20-inch wheels. 19 would be standard for the R-line, and here you can see high gloss black cladding here also for the R-line to differentiate a little bit more to the base version. All Tiguan length here, 4.55 meters or 179 inches, just like tiny little bit more than the previous generation. Biggest technology change is the DCC Pro. This is an upgraded adaptive suspension that's also equipped with this test vehicle here, and this has a 2-valve technology, bringing you even more comfort and sportiness at the same time, they promise. First test were running very good. Let's see how it behaves on the Autobahn here today. And there were also some remarks saying like, hey, is there like a rattling noise from the rear axle? I read something about it. I haven't noticed yet, but I'll retest it today on the German Autobahn. The side profile here, once again with the black frames in this design scheme, I think it fits very well to this gray look. So overall, a pretty sinister Tiguan here for you here today. The IQ light, you see it also here in the rear, by the way. This is the optional LED matrix in the front, and this also changes then something in the rear, that you have these layer effects here on the tail lamps. And of course, when you put in the Leah effects, yeah. I said layer effects, but Leah was thinking like the Leah effects, But it's also a Leah effect because Leah loves these turning indicators both in the front and also in the rear, and you only get them if you have this top optional matrix LED, the IQ light. And I think the rear light signature here is pretty cool. Also, once again, this glass effect design. So design-wise, they really made it more modern. Big Tiguan lettering here in the rear, and the R-line once again adds this special styling right here. The non-R-line model would look then a little bit more subtle. Increase also with the boot, 650 liters now, so a couple of liters more, and it is very well usable indeed. 1.40 meters in width here between the wheel arches, and the normal length is just over 90 centimeters or 36 inches, so that's cool. And then you can fold the seats easily from here and here. The only thing you can see when the co-driver's seat is a little bit too far back because Leah has been relaxing, then you need to put it a little bit forward like this. And there you can see it also has this fixation that it actually stays in place. Underneath here, by the way, there would still be space for a spare tire. There we go. Mickey Mouse, anyone? It's totally Mickey Mouse, isn't it? And then you can also get a full power socket here in the trunk. And Leah now shows us this adaptive towing hook. There we go. Interesting mechanism. It's like semi-automatic. There we go. So you have to put it there in place. And then when you press it once again, sometimes you make your hands a little bit dirty. There we go. And then you can push it back. Key fob, high gloss black. Not my favorite one, I have to say. Door closing sound. It is very nice. Front, let's see how it is in the rear. Both really nice. That I really like. Inside of the doors, soft touch here on the top part, even softer here, also for your elbow. Then you have this new high gloss black insert. It's also illuminated actually. And then here, this is a little bit distracting for the camera. Here, this is really nice. The totally covered door pockets, and we have that sometimes in 120,000 euro cars, and it's not the case anymore, so well done here. Then R-line steering wheel, perforation at the side, rear button still on the steering wheel, that's real lovely here. Left side for the cruise control, volume, right side to control the digital instruments. Switch gear is right here, drive forward, reverse like this. And the seats, in this case animal skin, they do not offer alternatives to animal skin in the high trims here. Unlike with the ID models, that has to be highly criticized indeed. Volkswagen has to be consistent also, because I mean, it's like, oh, when you buy a combustion engine, then you don't care about animals. It's like, there are people who buy combustion engines and still like animals and have dogs and stuff. So yeah, I don't get it. But you can also get nice fabric and microfiber seats actually for the Tiguan, so at least that. Then steering wheel up and down, in and out, and so on. And what I found also very interesting, here you see the R-Line entry badge, and like this area here actually remained clean and relatively dry. This was from cleaning here, back cleaning now. So this area here was dry because you can see the door sill is quite low. So this was a good finding then after the car wash, that the most relevant parts here on the inside remained relatively dry after the car wash. With 189, 6'2", there's still enough headroom left here. Ergonomics of the seat, however, are good. Upright, good seating position, and it's a compact feeling here, so it's not too large, but it's not too small. That's the key secret to the Tiguan, why it is one of the best sellers in the compact SUV segment. New cockpit here, a lot of high gloss black. With the R-Line you also have this illumination on the background, otherwise it would also be just a black plain field. Then here leather red with a blue contrast, this is also very nicely done. Then you either get 13-inch screen, or here this optional 15 inches, the larger one actually, and this is like, wow, in your face, so large indeed. But the good thing about this is, because you might say, hey, isn't that distracting when the screen is even larger? On the one hand, maybe yes. On the other hand, I say no. Oh, Leah also shakes her head. She loves it when the display is super large in the vehicle, actually. Because I found that here, the icon stand, for example, here in the Apple CarPlay integration, which also works wirelessly, by the way, and Android Auto as well, the icons are bigger, so you can not miss anything, you know. Also here, when you deactivate the speed warning for the EU theme here, is easily done. You also can click here in the middle, not only here. And they've massively upgraded the software now, so it's quicker now, it's more reliable, and it's larger in the screen, so I'm actually happy with the infotainment system now. There's still better software and hardware out there, yes, but it's not that, for example, with the pre-facelift Golf and so on, Leon, Octavia, all pre-facelift. It was just horrible with the software at VW, and now it's definitely better. Sliders here are illuminated at night, and you can slide for the temperature. At least it's better that you can do it here. Otherwise, you could also do it here inside the screen. That's also possible. Then the middle console is quite interesting. Here you have space above, and underneath there's inductive charging pad. You see here 14 Pro, 14 Pro Max, the iPhones, and they both charge, and they're also both cooled here with cooling holes so they don't overheat. 2 USB-C charging is also possible. And then in the middle console here, high gloss black, this will look ugly quite quickly, sadly. Start, stop and engine right here. And then you have this multi-mode button here, for example, for the volume. But you can also press it, and then you can, for example, here select the driving mode. So that's actually a good idea that you don't have to do that once again in the screen only. Digital instruments. Very good to read. I like the central view, but you can of course also change the views, whatever you want to have. The head-up display here, I put it to snow mode because I just like it when the number is blue. Snow, of course, when you have a white background, you can still see the blue number. Cup holders are adaptive, but you could also take out that whole thing. Yeah, of course, this remains in there. Why not? Then you put this one up. You have more separators, for example, for all your clutter and so on. And here underneath, there's like, like for a parking card or something, and for coins. So like, yeah, or this say for like a park clock. Do you call it park clock also? The famous German Parkuhr. Listen and repeat. Parkuhr is like. How do you call this actually in Britain, for example? This is the famous Ankunftszeit. Like you set it to the time you arrive, and then it's always like 30 minutes ahead you can actually set it to. So the famous German Parkuhr, geeicht. So this has to be that, or if you put something else in there which is not like this very original, you
one.
directly go to jail. Yeah, if it would have a different color, directly go to jail in Germany. Definitely, yeah. And then this whole armrest here is well attached and also soft enough for the elbow. You can also slide it forward and upward because only by that it actually fits here for the elbow if you want to drive in a very relaxed manner. Panoramic roof. On the Pro side, it goes all the way across the vehicle, and also you can open it for rear. So this is one of the rare panoramic roofs left, which you can really open like that. Wow, it leaves a lot of air in this. That's pretty nice. And you can also apply a shade. The only thing is that here in the front, you have these sliders, and especially while driving, you sometimes, maybe not slide well enough, and then this is the thing here. Sometimes the car complains, says like the vehicle key is not in the vehicle. And Leah had it once on the Autobahn that while driving, the car was saying the key is not in the vehicle and suddenly applied the brake. That's a huge problem. And I'll also report that to VW, and the engineers definitely need to work on that. So now the shade is closed. But of course, we need it open actually to have some more light on the interior, because I also want to show you something from the rear. And so with 189, 6'2", still have some space here above my head. And this is the seat as I would be driving, still enough legroom. Remember, it's not a very long car, so good usage of space. 2 USB-C chargers here, next to a real climate unit. And seat heating would be activated if the engine is actually properly running. Hard pack though at the inside of the doors. Optional Harman Kardon sound system. But there's a felt covering also at the rear of the back doors. Recently had the BMW 5 Series, for example, which did not have any felt covering at the inside of the doors at all. So I'm really happy to have it right here. Then the seats, which is cool. You can slide it forward here, 2/3, 1/3, like this, to have more trunk. Or more legroom, you can decide that. And then pull these straps here to change the angle of the back seat like this. Isofix, what was it on the? Yeah, Isofix both on the front seat and also the outer parts of the rear seats, because the Tiguan is also often used, of course, when you have a family or with children and so on. So there we go, cup holders. It's a little bit weird function, but I mean, it works kind of. There we go. I think when we were in the studio the first time, I couldn't even get it out properly because this was a prototype vehicle. But there you can see sometimes, when we have some functions that don't work. This is like a meme among car journalists. And then the manufacturers say, it's all like a prototype, or it's all like a pre-production vehicle, And sometimes it's true and it gets better, like this works now properly, but sometimes they just claim it, you know, and it's like, I remember the Jaguar XE, there was like the trunk release from below, it was like a cable and it was fixed with tape underneath, and then they say, it's all pre-production. And then 5 years later, I rechecked the vehicle and it was still the same. Yeah. So it can be like this or like that, something like this and or like that. Then ski hatch here in the middle. Then you can also load this one here through. So overall, the comfort and all the features here on the rear seat, very convincing. And on the rear windows, Leah shows us here.
No.
We finally know why the Tiguan is called Tiguan. This is the Tiger. On the other side is the Iguana. So Tiger plus Iguana is Tiguan. I'm not sure if the vehicle really looks like a tiger or like a iguana, but you can see from the outside, you can see it only when you hold a hand from the inside, then you can see the shade, but it's better visible from the inside, definitely. Engine lineup. This is here the 2-liter TDI, just under 8 seconds in the acceleration figure in the 193 horsepower trim, all-wheel drive. Also other horsepower specs are available. And then you can get a 1.5 TSI turbo petrol engine, or a 2-liter TSI turbo petrol engine, so 2 different things and horsepower outputs are available. Exact numbers you'll also find in the pinned comment or in the video description. And most important upgrade is the 1.5 TSI plug-in hybrid. Now with way bigger battery, 20 kWh net, and realistic like 80 kilometers, 50 miles of pure electric range. This is a massive upgrade indeed. And yeah, you always have then the DSG, the dual clutch transmission, automatic. Autobahn, sport mode. Oh, that's 160 kilometers an hour. So this is here the 2-liter TDI for the all-new Volkswagen Tiguan. 193 horsepower, 7.7 is the acceleration figure, 7.7 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. And yeah, definitely more than enough. One of the more powerful engines here available for the Tiguan. I mean, it has a certain size, so I would also recommend not to go for a very underpowered engine, because then you're always running it at very high RPM and so on. So this one here is definitely suitable enough. And of course the big advantage for the diesel is that it has enough power and torque. So especially when you need it here on the Autobahn. At the same time, especially if you use it on the motorway, it has quite a good fuel economy. So we're here long term at 6.5 liters on 100 kilometers. And that is somewhat okay, definitely. I mean, it's an SUV, yes. So recently in the Skoda Octavia, for example, we had the same diesel engine and we could score some 4 liters on 100 kilometers. Yeah, so at some point, this building style, which pushes against the wind, has its costs, but it's way more aerodynamic than before, actually. It's 6.5 liters on 100 kilometers, by the way, is about 45 mpg US, 55 mpg UK, just for comparison. But I think that's overall quite good average. If we're here in the sport mode, by the way, the shifting also goes to sport, so the RPMs are always a little bit higher. And also the DCC changes if you have that option. DCC, the dynamic chassis control, that's the adaptive suspension. I can also show you more about that. First of all, I want to show you, I can select the driving mode in several ways. I can press here this lower button, for example, and then also select it while driving from below. That's good that I don't have to do it in the touchscreen. Just depending on what you prefer, because they have also easily put it here in a hotkey down there. So if you're somewhere else in the main menu, you just have to press up here, and then you can more or less easily pick that, because the screen here, especially the bigger one, is now so large that you can easily also pick that in the screen while driving. Is definitely easier than before. And this DCC you can also set to the individual mode. It's not too complicated actually. Here you can, for example, set it all the way to comfort, and then the steering to sport, which is sometimes my favorite, because here in the lower degree angle in the comfort mode, there's not too much reaction from the steering. Overall it's fine, but you can also tune it here to the sport level, and then you have a little bit more feedback in the steering. But still then, here, this is more for running straight. There's not too much feeling here. and then it gets more feeling to the side. And now the guys behind me probably say like, what the hell is this guy doing? So yeah, that's a catch actually a little bit. So that could be a little bit better with the steering, but I'm overall still happy with it. And also this DCC Pro is the new upgraded dynamic chassis control, does a good job. So considering you have 20-inch wheels mounted here, so the biggest wheels that are available, is still a very good comfort. Also when we have these waves here on the motorway, very well evened out, so you don't miss an air suspension for that. If you want more comfort, stick with smaller wheels, then you can also vary that a little bit. With the 20-inch wheels you have a somewhat sportier ride. Here noise insulation at 100 kilometers an hour is, I would say, okay. We do have competitors from the premium brands which are more silent, I would say. If we compare like a BMW X1 for example, I feel that it's more silent here than the VW Tiguan. And I mean here the price, yeah, you can easily compare it to premium competitors. When we come at the end of the review to our pricing section, you might be surprised what you meanwhile have to pay for a VW Tiguan. So as we talk about like little like sporty features, let's do a lane change, and it's always good to do that, of course. And here when you have the sporty DCC mode to compare, for example, and also the taxi driver behind me is probably getting nervous and wants to drive 2 meters in front of me. So to the right, I see here it doesn't shake up at all, really nice. We go back, yeah, that's actually very decent. So, and if you go to the more comfortable mode here, you do feel it actually also in the lane changes. But the good thing about the DCC is it always rules in this certain spectrum. So, thank you, Leah. Not sure what was like this. What did it say? Like always pay attention or something? Yeah, I don't know. I mean these things are always, I feel, more distracting than they would add to safety or something. You know. So yeah, back to the DCC. So even if you have it in the most comfortable setting, it rules between comfort and sportiness in a certain spectrum. And even if you're in a sporty setting, it also rules between comfort and sportiness. It's just a different preset, and both will be fine while driving. So if you ask me between the difference of the previous generation and this generation, this time here with the German Autobahn focus, initial review was more like rural driving in France. It was in southern France, yeah, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, it was in southern France. No, it was in southern France. I think. Yeah, you know, sometimes we get mixed with with so many driving reviews. Definitely. So this time here, as we have it in Germany, wanted to pay more attention to the German Autobahn, German motorway, and this is also one of the things you feel. It has always been a very nice compact SUV, definitely. But this one here, in this new generation, feels even more refined, I would say. Please pay attention to the road. But maybe because I'm sometimes looking at the camera or something at you guys, maybe that's it or something. Yeah, the view of the DCC is always nice to see for sure. So yeah, so I'm really happy with the motorway driving. The only thing I noticed, because we drove the Passat and the Tiguan the very same day, is that the new Passat is even better. And yeah, that's always the discussion between SUV and Turbopack SUV or estate and something. And yeah, in that case, you have to say like the low building style has even more advantages for comfort. But for an SUV here, good in comfort. Gonna go for another acceleration right here. Really nice. The diesel also has power reserves if you're already at speed. And there we go. Now the wind noise is picking up, but for that speed it's still somewhat okay. Not the best in the noise insulation, but still good. Also has this, special insulation pack here, high trim level. That was almost 190 kilometers an hour. Yeah, and also good feeling for the brake overall, I think. And the good thing about the diesel is here, when you are at higher speeds, then the consumption is not so much higher than at lower speeds. More in the city maybe you get the problem, whereas the petrol engine, especially if you go for a smaller one, will exceed the consumption figures even more, especially at higher speeds. Then yeah, that's the thing. Here, by the way, when we are at higher speeds, do a lane change in comfort mode, it's still okay. It doesn't shake up too much. Now the taxi driver, we let him overtake. Now he's getting more angry. So there we go. Yeah. Overall, a very nice feeling here in the Tiguan. Gives you also a safe, compact feeling. So since it's not too long, you always have a very good feeling for that vehicle. It has, let's say, the right size that you can do everything in the city. At the same time, it's comfortable enough here on the German Autobahn. By the way, if I didn't mention yet, the maximum towing capacity is 2.3 tons. The all-wheel drive diesel would be a very good example for that, for this maximum towing capacity. Pricing, very interesting. Hold on tight, guys. So it starts around 35,000 euros, 35,000 pounds, roundabout, with a very base entry model, front-wheel drive, 1.5 TSI. But then if you go to the TDI, for example, or the plug-in hybrids, or here is for the R-Line, of course, is more expensive than, and so on. More bells and whistles. This car here, as it stands right now, it's a Volkswagen Tiguan. It's not a Bentley Bentayga. This car here is in the German price list here for 70,000 euros. I've never seen a Tiguan for 70,000 euros. Here it is. And maybe you can rather buy a plane for that. So if you now compare it to a BMW X1 or like Audi Q3, Mercedes GLA, you can easily compare it to it because they are in the very same price region now. That's a tough pill to swallow for today. Other than that, driving is really nice here with the DCC Pro and so on. And I think the looks is also pretty cool here, especially in the new R-Line. It's also way more aerodynamic than before. So this will, of course, make the consumption better. We've seen it was also quite okay from the diesel. The only thing is here, due to the new aerodynamics, because it has this more fluent form, yes, aerodynamics have massively improved. But on the same side, before, the previous generation was a little more angular and looked to me a little bit stronger. So definitely always pro and con with the new products, but it's a very, very interesting ride for sure. What do you think about the new Tiguan? Tell me in the comments and tune into the competitors. This is here the updated Cupra Formentor. It has become a very popular compact SUV or compact crossover. Why is that? And what are the update changes? We're also going to drive here the new VZ version, 333 horsepower and torque split at the rear axle. This is going to be really sporty and interesting. Everything you need to know about this vehicle here with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the front, which doesn't have a typical single frame open grille anymore or something. It's more closed on the one hand, but then of course there are cooling openings and more horizontal stress, and this kind of little bit overlapping shark nose front. Enceladus gray is this vehicle color, which is first of all a matte color and also has this almost purple nuance in it. Very interesting one, isn't it? Then this copper Cupra logo right here, and we also have a new light signature, and to me it always reminds me of Zelda, the Triforce here in this 1, 2, 3 dot styling, pretty interesting, and of course pretty cool also when you use the turning indicators, and you have a very extensive light signature also when you open and close the vehicle. Length 4.45 meters or 175 inches. You would start with 18-inch wheels, and then optional or standard for the VZ versions, the more powerful versions, 19-inch wheels in different stylings. Here once again this copper styling, pretty cool, and also with these copper brake calipers. That looks amazing, doesn't it? And then here also in this gray shiny style, the wheel cladding around. And then you can see this very strong hip area in this crossover styling right here. The DCC, dynamic chassis control, this adaptive suspension comes standard for the VZ models. Otherwise it's an option, and they try to limit the package a little bit, that it's not too complicated to configure it. In comparison, of course, there are still enough options left. Soon more to the pricing. In the rear also a complete rework here in the top. The light signature goes then here through to the middle logo, which is also now illuminated, and that looks also pretty cool, doesn't it? Then the VZ badge is right here, once again for the more powerful versions. Then the really striking contrasting diffuser area in the lower part, and here these are even here in this version the Akrapovic exhaust, giving us a little bit more exhaust note. But there's also a sound actuator on the inside for all the VZ version. I'm going to show you later that it actually makes a huge difference. Since we want to check out the engine sound right now, something more on top. So they have this emotional startup function here. So when you hold the start engine or stop engine button first for like 1.5 seconds and then press the brake, so the other way around basically, then you have like emotional plop start up sound. Let's listen to that. The engines, let's start slowly. You start with a 2-liter TDI as entry-level engine. Then you have a 1.5 TSI turbo petrol engine. If you want to keep it rather low in the price and maybe take one of the good leasing offers, they really went full way, all the way in with good leasing offers recently, actually. Big upgrade is the plug-in hybrid. It is based on the 1.5 TSI. That one now with 20 kilowatt hours net from the battery. That means you can do some 80 kilometers or 50 miles of pure electric range with it. And of course, also good depending on the country for taxation reasons, for example. So this is like the most significant update actually. And then on the pure petrol side, more to the performance side. First of all, the stronger plug-in hybrid horsepower version is already a VZ version, as well as the 2-liter TSI versions, either with 265 horsepower front-wheel drive, or here 333 horsepower all-wheel drive, and also at the rear with a torque split that you can send more torque to the curved outer wheel than at the rear axle, and kind of like letting go of that front-wheel drive characteristic. Very interesting indeed, and we take a look if that works. 4.8 seconds is the acceleration figure, by the way, and so far a VZ5 version with the 5-cylinder that they had before is not planned. It was also really small in numbers, very niche, and of course way too expensive for the car in general. So I'm at this moment pretty certain that they will stick with this version here as the very strongest one. Vehicle key in high gloss black. Of course you get them without the event stickers. Yeah, Cupra badge. It's not my favorite key, let's take it that way. And door closing sound is okay, nothing special. Oh, the rear one is better, definitely. Then inside of the doors, here the font structure and also soft touch. Also soft touch here with the leatherette. And what I really like, they have this gray scheme, for example, that you don't have only black, for example. However, no covering of the inside of the doors or something. Then Sennheiser sound system. This is new actually. 12 speakers, or to be very precise, because I did some investigation on that. Because on some, like price, it said like 11 speakers, then they said 12 speakers, and I was like, is it 11 or 12 now? Well, it is 11 speakers plus subwoofer. And if you're in the audiophile industry, maybe you can tell me, is a subwoofer officially a speaker? Do you say 11 speakers plus subwoofer, or is that 12 speakers? Technically, I would say it's 12 speakers because the subwoofer also is a speaker. I would say this, so, but
maybe like 4 or 5 door thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a discussion like, is this a 5-door or is it a 4-door? You can argue pro and con. Yeah. Let's continue, and maybe you get some comments about this. Interior, you have the steering wheel with these copper stitching on the inside. Then the Cupra button. This is really important because you can click through the driving modes, and also for the cruise control, real buttons, no hashtag capacitive BS. I really like that. Then the seats, different ones are available. These are the optional cup bucket seats with fabric, some microfiber accentuations. The seat itself is animal free, and they also use some recycling. No alternatives available yet for the steering wheel. However, as base, you would also get a normal sport seat with head restraints integrated with microfiber, or the base seat, not available for the VZ versions, is a pure fabric seat. The VZ already starts with the mid-trim sports seat, and then this one optional. And here you get held tight a little bit more, especially in the shoulder area, but I feel that the normal sport seat is a little bit softer. Then here, 189, 602, still some headroom left. Cockpit overview with some news, soon more to that. First of all, here the dashboard has this soft touch with the copper control stitches, and I really like here this decoy element. It has also a structure, and you can really hear it, how it feels. Then glove box, dampened somewhat as well, and then there's like a special secret cubby hole inside the glove box right there, and good closing sound. Middle console, I like it once again that they have gray as a color scheme, not only plain black here, for example. Then here, this is in a DSG shifting lever, dual clutch transmission. In the front, you have inductive charging pad, and it also has some cooling holes, 2 USB-C chargers. And then here, cup holders, they are not adaptive, but they have 2 different sizes. And then this one is also dampened here for your elbow. That's fine actually. And then you can store some other clutter there. More 2 USB-C chargers are in the rear, by the way. And then this one here is the panoramic roof. And there's, first of all, there's a shade available you can apply like this, both with these doubtful sliders though. And you can really open that completely to leave some real air in. That has also become rare on the market, and yeah, that works very, very well. News here as for the infotainment size, now always 13-inch, bigger screen overall, and also these sliders here for the temperature in the lower part, they are now illuminated at night that you at least see them in the darkness. Steering wheel has a very good size, also shifting pedals here, and as I said, I like it that I can straightforward control it with individual buttons. And this is your driver POV for today here, pretty nice here with the steering wheel size. And then the infotainment system, it is definitely quicker than before. So just the responsiveness you can see right here. Most of the time probably you would use Google Maps or Apple CarPlay, wireless or wired is both available. So it's a significant update, definitely. We have to see how it holds on over time. They had a lot of software issues, of course, in the recent years. But this looks definitely more promising now. And the sound of the Sennheiser system, actually quite nice. It's really bass intensive, I have to say. Then you can take a look at the equalizer, and this is the club setting. So probably I would, although I love, you know, like electronic music and stuff, maybe even not use the club setting, but the normal music setting that is a little bit less bass intensive. Leah is showing you 2 more features. First of all, here for the ambient lighting, you can also change the colors, but better to see, of course, in tunnel or when it's dark. And interesting also here with the key fob, it directly fits here in this specific hole on the left side. Actually, on both way around, if you turn it around, also fits. So yeah, however you like it. Rear seats, and here the rear doors. This is all hardback material then throughout the door. And then here you can see these cup bucket seats. They have carbon fiber at the back part and also this recess right here. So this is actually quite good. As for the rear legroom, although this recess begins way lower, I'm sitting here as a driver in this position, but you see for 4 tall adults, no problem. Also headroom wise, no problem at all, even with the panoramic roof. 2 USB-C chargers and also this temperature unit here in the rear when the engine is running. Can I also sit here on the 5th seat? If I get arranged here with my legs, yeah, more or less for short journeys, for example. Isofix then at the outside seats each, and they are also hidden here in a way. Cup holders, all open, not adapted, and then you can also apply this ski hatch here to load through the trunk. And can we adjust something here? No, that's actually just for you fold it or you don't. The trunk, 450 liters, unless you have the 3-dimensional camera view, then there's an additional CPU unit which reduces it to 420 liters. Interesting, isn't it? It's also the case then here, but still well usable here. Vertical cabin trolley, no problem. Backpack, and the width, see here, is about 1 meter or 40 inches, and the normal length is some 83 centimeters or 32 inches. And the total length to the seats, as we are driving for 2/3, is about 160 in meters or 62 inches. Underneath here, we have some more space, unless you have the subwoofer right here from the Sennheiser sound system. Then the spare tire will get a little bit tricky. And you can see here also this the electric hatch. Does it actually have a good child safety? Yeah, that's fine from the sensor. Launch control. Plop. Woo! 90 kilometers an hour. That was 0 to 90. Nice, 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 nice. Woo! And here I also have the torque vectoring at the rear axle, which helps me especially in these corners, because then I have more power on the outside wheel. Really cool. And the sound actuator then here, yeah, it feels so good, and the handling is really super agile. I love that. However, what's really interesting here in the Cupra mode, that sound actuator is even more accentuated. So in the drift mode, it's drawn back. Probably it would be like maybe too annoying then in the drifting mode or something. Of course, the Cupra mode is then better for public roads because it leaves more ESC in. And the handling of the car is really superb. So you have a very good feeling of the steering wheel. Look at that here now when I go in this 90-degree corner. really beautiful how the steering wheel follows the corner, the degree angle. It feels very compact, very light indeed. This one here then also a version without any additional battery system or something, and that is of course good because it is in comparison really lightweight. Oh, this is a Krapovich exhaust. It's very beautiful, right? Sometimes it gives you the crackles and pops. Nice, very, very cool. So dynamic wise, I have to say, yeah, really awesome. And you don't feel that it would be like an SUV crossover or something. It really gives you these typical hot hatch vibes. And yeah, this 333 horsepower version here. Do I miss the 5-cylinder here? I mean, driving fun wise, not. Of course, the 5-cylinder is always something different sound wise, because there you have that true sound from that 5-cylinder, no doubt about that. But they did so much for the driving fun, especially with the torque vectoring, that it doesn't feel like a front-wheel driven vehicle or something. I mean, yes, you have all-wheel drive, but due to this torque vectoring here, this front-wheel bias, you know, is nothing you would feel on a negative side or something. Plop. Woo! So that was like 20 to 100 kilometers. Really nice acceleration, all-wheel drive here, and we have the new top performance version. This one here is 333 horsepower, and you also hear it has this sound actuator, 2-liter 4-cylinder TSI. Wow, this in this Cupra mode here with the sound actuator is like, yeah, that is it really sounds like something even bigger for sure. And with this all-wheel drive, you also get the traction on the ground from that acceleration. It's a big difference, by the way, here when you pick the comfort mode. Now you can switch to the map. Like when you want to switch it through in the infotainment system, here they have made it a little bit complicated, because here you have to go into drive profile and then pick the individual stuff. But the good thing is you can change here on the steering wheel and take a look at that. Off-road drift. Drift is even possible because this one here has torque vectoring. Here, comfort, then you click it through, performance. Cupra is the sportiest mode. Individual, for example, you can also individualize yourself. Here, for example, set the DCC, the adaptive suspension, all the way to the soft mode, or maybe then the steering to the sporty setting. That is, for example, possible. That is also one of my likable settings. And what's also interesting, when you are actually, for example, in the comfort mode, don't want to click things through, press and hold the button, and it always jumps to the Cupra mode. I can show it to you again. Here, comfort, and I would click it through, but here, press and hold, always hops to the Cupra mode. I think it's well done, so I don't need to finger around in the infotainment system. I can directly access the Cupra mode, and that's also a cool thing that, you know, when you want to drive a little bit sportier, that's it. Biggest difference is then also the sound actuator, because just to get a little bit more performance, you can always also use the shifting pedals. So you individually shift down yourself, and then you ride in the RPMs. So you can also do that. Even here, when you are in the comfort mode, you can also just here shift down, and it's just like such a big difference in the sound actuator mode. I mean, here in comfort mode, when you accelerate, you almost hear nothing. In the Cupra mode, yeah, it really sounds like a completely different vehicle. I mean, when you are on the motorway for a longer period of time, probably that's even a little bit too much then, maybe, I don't know, but that's totally up to you. You can decide that, so I think it's fine. Drift mode, as I said, this is relevant on non-public roads, because then you can make most use of this torque vectoring here in the rear. It's like, usually it has power on the front wheels, then maximum 50% is sent to the rear wheels, and then with this torque vectoring system you get here in the 333 horsepower version, the top VZ version, it also distributes on the rear axle, you know, so the curved outer wheel can get more torque than the curved inner wheel, and then you can get out of the corners even better. Take a look here at the motorway driving. So for calmness and comfort, you would go to the comfort mode. That's also okay from the noise volume here on the inside. And here you can still set cruise control on the steering wheel, easily done. Real buttons still, I really like that you have real buttons to control everything. That's easily done. And you also have an active lane keeping assist. Here, for example, the car is steering for us. See here, very smoothly done. Of course, here in this facelift, they have also updated the assistance systems. and that works very well, so pretty smooth. Yeah, and I mean the Formentor always gives you like a little spice, something special. Also a little bit higher crossover style if you compare it directly to the Cupra Leon. When they stand next to each other, you have to look closely which one is which one. The Formentor a little bit longer from the over in comparison to the hatch. Then again, the Estate is a little bit longer than the Formentor. So it sits between the Cupra Leon and the Leon Sports Tourer. I would describe it in that way. And you don't have this really high sitting SUV feeling, but something in, I would say, between SUV and crossover. Let's take it that way. And when you set the mirrors, by the way, it's always nice to set them in a way that you still see something from the chassis, that you can see these very strong shoulders when you look to the back, to the side mirror there. That's really nice. I got a nice steering feel as well. And yeah, as I said, you can also individualize that yourself in the Cupra mode, or when you have it set in the individual mode, it also gives some more feedback. But it's really precise, it's progressive as well. Here, when you have a VZ version, you have a lot of standard features as well. 19-inch wheels, then you have like this progressive steering. Here, the dynamic chassis control, the adaptive suspension, is doing a great job. So although we have the 19-inch wheels, we have actually good comfort, so don't have like strong feeling in the lower back and the lumbar area or something, just because the wheels are a little bit larger. So that's actually fine. So I'm really a fan of the DCC. You should always go for that one. Here they actually combine it with the Matrix LED and the light show animation and so on. Yeah, these packaging or trim combinations are sometimes a little bit strange. That's what manufacturers do. So I'm feeling actually quite good here on the motorway. Seating wise, we have these special cup bucket seats here with fabric on the inside. That's good that it doesn't get as hot as the animal skin surface, for example. If you ask me to go between the normal, like there's like the base seat fabric only, then there's the sports with the integrated head restraint already, and then there's this cup bucket seat. It's a really tough question, so it depends on the individual body posture. Here, these ones, they are holding you a little bit tighter in the shoulder area. If you race a lot, that might make sense for you. Then again, they are a little bit stiffer from the bolstering, which they are supposed to be actually. So probably for the best comfort, I think I would get the normal sports seats with the microfiber. I think they're a little bit better in comfort, but it depends. Maybe if you can test it at the dealer, but from my first gut feeling, I would probably stick with the normal sports seats, and that's it. Although these here, they look really amazing, definitely. Fuel economy or consumption or mileage, at least some minimum 7 liters on 100 kilometers, so 34 mpg US, 41 mpg UK. If you do like 100, 120 kilometers an hour motorway, that's always with this engine, and also when you have a lot of horsepower, all-wheel drive, and so on and so on. Of course, when you use it in a more performance way, then the consumption is even worse. Pricing, pretty interesting. So an entry price, with a very, very low engine and lower trim and so on, starts already around 40,000 euros in Germany or 35,000 pounds in the UK. But then if you go like higher spec, bigger engine, some packages inside, you can easily also crack like this 50 to 60,000 area and so on. You have to think about it. Comparing to a true sports car is still quite a good deal, but of course it's not a cheap car at all, from the list price at least. Even more interesting with this one is, I've been looking at the market the past years, they really often have good leasing offers, where this one in leasing was even cheaper than some cars that were, actually in a different price region. So very interesting. And sometimes for the Cupra Formentor, you got a better leasing rate than, for example, for a Volkswagen T-Roc or for a Golf or something. And that made it also popular. Why is that? I'm not even sure if some of these leasing offers were like sustainable for them. I think they really want to push the car on the market because they say, hey, this is like our first own halo car, and we want to show what it's capable of. We want to have it visible on the road. So as long as they make these offers, it's even more attractive, definitely. And this 333 horsepower version will of course be like the niche top version. More on the road you will see, for example, the 1.5 liter TSI with 150 horsepower. If at some point your desired engine is not available yet in the configurator, don't wonder. until the end of 2024, they want to have all the engine versions released here also in this updated trim. What do you think about the Cupra Formentor? Tell me in the comments. Race mode, easy sport. This thing did have a launch control, didn't it? Oops, wasn't me. The VW T-Roc R is, so to speak, a Golf SUV on steroids. How good is it now here in that facelifted version? With Thomas on Autogefühl, let's go! In the front there's some grille and spoiler changes with the facelift, but it's more that the normal T-Roc versions look now more like the R, for example, especially the R line looks now more identical to the true R model. Yeah, that might be annoying then for true R model customers. However, you still get the R logo there and also a nice light strip in the lower part underneath the headlamps, LED standard and optional matrix LED. And then you also have additionally that lower vertical daytime running light. That is of course a very fancy option, and also in the lower part a really strong spoiler. It works very well with the typical R color, the lapis blue, which is also somewhat Thomas blue here on Autogefühl. Short look behind the scenes here with, of course, a fitting Thomas blue microfiber towel then fitting to the exterior color of the car. Okay, that's coincidence. Or is it? Well, here the lower part of the spoiler, the black one, is kind of prone to these, these dots that appear when water is drying out. So yeah, this is then a detailed cleaning just for you, that you can actually check out the car when it's really beautiful and clean. The length at 4 meters 24 or 167 inches. Wheels do start 18-inch in the T-Roc R and optional 19-inch wheels, of course more massive styling are badging right here. They still stick with crossover wheel arches. It also does feature off-road driving modes. The overdrive system is front wheel bias plus rear on demand, but here in the R version a lot of torque is being sent to the rear wheels. Unlike Tiguan R, R2 R and Golf R, and in a new generation or facelift, here this one does not get a torque splitter at the rear, so it's a more simplified version. But still, we will see in the driving part how agile it still is. By the way, you've probably already seen it. It's one of my big hobbies to dress accordingly to the vehicle color. So you know, when you watch a video here on our channel and I'm not dressed according to the vehicle color, or let's say in a either matching or let's say color fitting way, then definitely I did not know before which color I get on location. So yeah, then you always know. So in this case, yes, I knew before. And what's also interesting, here at the C-pillar you have this color, yeah, carbon fiber-like, but it's just like a sticker or something. Still, it brings some more sportiness, but would have been necessary? I think rather not. Tell me in the comments, what do you think about sporty SUVs? Is it a contradiction or does it work? Design-wise, it's always a challenge, but here in this case, I think it really worked. It's on the one hand typical Volkswagen AG hatch style, on the other hand here the black accentuation, the modern lamp signature here also in the facelift, and the overall size of the vehicle work for that. And also, yeah, the Cupra exhaust, that option, almost 4,000 euros, but already visually it does pay off. Well, and then there's of course that sound you already heard. And if you have the matrix LED option, by the way, in the front, then you also have in the rear cascading turning indicators. And in the front, by the way, the indicators look then like this. Subscribers know that here on Autogefühl we have the Autogefühl fake exhaust police when manufacturers use fake exhaust. Gladly, no job for them for today. But the reason I saw that one of you wrote it like FEP, so for fake exhaust police. That's awesome, right? So maybe we can say like AFAP, so for Autogefühl fake exhaust police. And then maybe with these police wagon emojis that are there, put them in the comments, I would love to see them. Previous generation khaki, which I do prefer because this fob does not feature high gloss black. That's better to me. And then door closing sound. Yeah, that's quite solid. Not the best we've heard though. Yeah, I would say in the region of okay. Interior checkup, inside of the doors. A, high gloss black. B, hard pack at the inside of the doors. Well, at least this soft part for your armrest is good. And the window levers are also good quality. And this is easy to control. R entry badge, and at night you also see a puddle light projected from the side mirrors, maybe in the basement garage. Then R steering wheel, blue inserts and also blue contrast stitches at the inside. That's beautiful. Then you have hashtag capacitive BS buttons at the steering wheel right there. Left side also with the R mode selector. I'll talk to you about that when we drive the vehicle. Right side to control something of the digital instruments, which are right here, and also standard here for the T-Roc R. Standard also these beautiful sport seats here with gray microfiber R stitching, then fabric inserts right there, also with that blue styling. They look great and are also indeed comfortable. Then you also have some leatherette applications as beauty element on the sides. The R sits 20 millimeters lower in the base suspension, which is then a stiff one, or option you can get the DCC, the adaptive suspension, which we also have in this vehicle. And you have a good mix of seating position. It's not too low, it's not too high, kind of crossover style or compact SUV, and also steering wheel up and down, in and out. You can find a very nice position, and indeed these sport seats here are not only looking good, they keep you tight at the same time. They even deliver good long-term comfort. And headroom with 1,89 m or 6'2", plenty of left. Interior overview, new with the facelift here, now soft touch material at the top of the dashboard. That's a good improvement. Then you will start 8-inch screen with some knobs. This one, the option 9.2-inch screen. Then once again you see here perforations at the side of the steering wheel and shifting levers. Digital instruments, that happens while agile driving. You can however bring the consumption down to around 9 liters on 1 kilometers with long way motorway driving. Then it's 26 mpg US, 31 mpg UK, but yeah, most of the time it will be a little bit worse indeed, like you've seen here. Then you can also change these views right here, and if you stick with that one, you can also change what you want to see in the middle part actually. Also GPS, and then you can also make that one full screen like this. This infotainment system, basic menu, that's simple enough. If you want to change sound, for example, Beats audio system is an option. Let's soon test that. Here the car internal GPS is just too slow, not really responsive. This software won't win prizes, and also not the hardware that is behind it. Here you will rather use Apple CarPlay. Beats audio system here is actually quite decent to listen to, like that. This then here the overall CarPlay integration, of course, also Android Auto is possible. Wireless or via cable, you can pick that then. I recommend the cable connection, it's more stable. And then you have a new climate unit. Yes, the knobs are gone. You have a capacitive BS solution in here. However, 4 capacitive buttons here, or capacitive fields or areas, it's quite well to use. You can either touch or slide, that's both possible, and it's like actually large enough to see. Below that you have 2 USB-C chargers, inductive charging pad, and also the massive shifting lever. Dual clutch transmission is standard. And then an off-road driving mode selector, not sure how often you will use that. And then we have cup holders, but they're not adaptive actually. That's a hit and miss. And then some more space underneath this armrest. Rear bench also features the sport seat layout with the gray microfiber. Looks really amazing. And if there's a tall driver, there's not too much knee room left. So I only fit in here because the seat back is kind of soft. So yeah, I have to then, you know, spread my legs a little bit, then I do fit better here. Headroom wise, however, this is no problem. And overall, the seating position in the rear with that single seat setup is also very decent. Again, you shouldn't just have 2 long legs. 2 USB-C chargers then here now in that middle area in the rear in the facelift. 3 times in. And sitting in the middle part is again a knee problem, but not a height problem, although it's of course a little bit stiffer than here in that middle area. By flipping the logo, electric hatch, and you end up with just under 400 liters, so not too much. Length it's at 77 centimeters, or yeah, just about 30 inches, not too much. The overall height, like the total height, is about just over 60 centimeters or 24 inches, and the width, that's actually a good measure, is a good meter or 40 inches. And you see here the cabin trolley in the vertical way. That's already a problem, at least with that happened. That's live on Autogefühl. Let's try that again. The car was cheating together with the cabin trolley. They were working together. Really? Well, that way it does work. And total length 115 meters or about 60 inches. Under the hood there's a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine with 300 horsepower. 4.9 seconds is the acceleration figure, and all-wheel drive front plus rear on demand. And weren't there also times where they properly painted the hoods from the inside? Guess these times are over. Coast cuttings. T-Roc R facelift, 300 horsepower, putting it here into the race mode, and German Autobahn with acceleration from 50 kilometers an hour. Let's go. 150. 200 it is, 125 miles an hour. And this goes maximum 250, 155 miles an hour. And let's see if we can score that here. 230. Yeah, it will be too short, but that was already impressive. Wow. Of course, now it's actually quite loud, but still well to control in the race mode. The suspension, the DCC, dynamic chassis control, also is a little bit stiffer. And this has there's normal T-Roc. This has superb handling here. Doesn't even feel like 200 kilometers an hour, although we're not in the sportiest car over from the building form here. Very well to control on the brakes, and this again confirms the handling of this vehicle. It has such a good handling, is so balanced. In the sporty driving fun, it doesn't even feel like an SUV. Soon we're also going to some winding corners and show you even more about the agile handling in tight corners. Wow, here also very good job on the motorway, and sport seats keeping me tight. Fabric surface here, not sliding too much. Also breathable here, sunny day, I'm not sweating. This is a great job, and also nice feedback there from that Akrapovic exhaust, which is a nice option definitely for this one. Let's turn down the window. We're in the tunnel, still in that race mode. Let's see. Oh, there's the Dodge Challenger next to us. Let's see if he's going to react here. Race against the T-Roc R. That's a sinister look, man. You can't see it yet here, right? But you'll soon see it. Yeah, I mean this vehicle. There we go. Yeah, here we go. He was responding now, and yeah, of course, static sound from that way higher displacement engine is of course outscoring here the T-Roc, although we have the beautiful Akrapovic exhaust mounted in the back. Well, but this car is supposed to do both. Still here in that sport mode, the suspension is rideable. However, if you compare it to a normal T-Roc, also we have here the bigger wheels, the optional 19-inch mounted. You do feel the potholes then, and normal T-Roc is more suitable for everyday driving life if you seek more comfort. But this one here still is a very good everyday driver. And you can also go back then to normal mode, for example, and then the suspension gets a little bit, more forgiving if you have that optional DCC, the dynamic chassis control. Wow. Yeah, steering feels also good and very. Where's everything going right? Just to leave me the space on the left lane. Thank you, guys. That's how it's supposed to be, right? So, yeah, you're waiting for the next traffic light to jump green. Even in normal mode, you have some feedback from the exhaust. Good drive forward here, 90-degree turn, 90-degree turn of steering. That's how I love it. Progressive styling, and once again, it doesn't shake up at all. They found a very nice setup here, and we know that our friend Benny Leuchter, professional racing driver, he did set up this vehicle here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Yeah, if you told it like a couple of years ago that Volkswagen would set up a compact SUV on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, was like, really? Yeah, but they actually did that, and you can feel that. The drive is indeed amazing here already on the motorway. Assistance systems, you set it here with the left thumb. Plus minus is 10 kilometer steps. Resume and set is 1 kilometer step. So that's actually better here now than we know, for example, from the VW Golf, where they have 1 and 10 kilometer steps on plus and minus, and you have to push it way more through. However, still hashtag capacitive BS buttons. They look fancy here in the tunnel because they're backlit, you know, that looks cool, yes. But they're harder to use while driving. The same goes for the Climatronic, which is standard here. For a capacitive BS solution, it's quite okay. Still, the manual dials would have just been easier to control. Yeah, and then you have the shifting pedals. There you can shift down yourself, and also the R button, blue illuminated. When you press it through, you just shift through the different driving modes one by one. And if you press and hold it, then it hops direct to the race mode. But you know, when you introduce capacitive buttons and then make them kind of like two-step, even more complicated. Now we shift down ourselves, and then we can even have spontaneous acceleration. This was 80 to 170, beautiful indeed. Yeah, and these shifting pedals are really large, you can easily reach them here in the corner. I have so much feedback from that suspension, that is actually good, it's fun. It's not too bumpy, although it gives a sporty feedback, and I'm really astonished how well this vehicle can do both, being a good motorway vehicle and also this performance car. That is a great thing to have. A Golf, of course, sits lower, feels sportier for that. But this one here indeed is some compromise. You say, hey, I want something for everyday driving, like which still offers comfort, has somewhat higher seating position, but gives me that goosebumps when I put it in the corners or on the motorway. That is possible. And these sport seats here are also really well built. Again, good compromise, shoulder support, at the same time more comfortable than the normal seats. That is really cool. By the way, in the assistance systems you also have that travel assist here now, which is keeping you in the lane. So it works quite smoothly, so you are being kept in the lane in here. Some steering, but again, not like hectic reactions from that steering wheel. So that's overall working very well. And there's also a blind spot monitor if you are at some point overtaken in this vehicle. Right, one more time. Race mode, now winding corners. Let's see about that agility. Again, nice input steering wheel. Downshift, of course, that comes a little bit sudden. If you want that a little bit smoother, then you do it yourself here with the shifting pedals. Now third gear, now I shift back myself in second gear. Now it's smoother racing transition and I can get around here, and yeah, that's cool. We have not a rear wheel bias, and there's also no torque splitter here like in the new Golf 8R or in the Arteon R or in the new Tiguan R. This one does not get the rear torque split. However, since a lot of power is sent to the rear wheels, it still feels really nice, really balanced. Again, no oversteer or something, but it really behaves very well here in these winding corners. Yeah, it's really a very, very fun car. With that facelift here, with more hashtag capacitive BS, it's not that I would say you have to go for the facelift. I would easily pick one from the used car market, go for the pre-facelift for more real buttons. The engine is not really changed. Some stylings, but that rather counts for the... Oh, have you heard it plops? Clock, clock, from that Akrapovic exhaust, really beautiful. So easily check the used car market for a pre-facelift version. Delivery times are long at this moment anyway, and I think the pre-facelift from the user interface was better. However, if you can get maybe a good lease at some point, this facelift will also do fine, not too big of a difference than driving wise. And of course you can always go for the smaller infotainment screen, which still has these buttons here for the volume and also for the zoom in and zoom out. That also makes it somewhat more analog and somewhat more like the pre-facelift. Here, one more time now. Really tight corners downhill, also shifting down. Good steering control. Now you feel also that the suspension can be rough at times when the road is rough, but then, yeah, having a lot of fun. So this is one of the very good examples for a very balanced vehicle which can combine a lot of different aspects. This vehicle here behind me, one of the coolest, one of the sportiest estates at this moment. Gerade für Sporty gefahren, jetzt aus der Kurve raus. Oh, ist das geil. This video is about the Cupra Leon facelift, no matter if you're interested in the hatch or the estate version, and also no matter if you're interested in the normal version or this top sporty version here of the Leon. We'll tell you all about it you need to know. With Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the Cupra Leon facelift, and in all versions they get a new front here with a shark nose design, so a little sharper design indeed in the front. It's actually pretty cool, sporty look even for a base model. This here, however, is the VZ model, the top sporty version, 333 horsepower, soon more to the performance figures. You now get new lights as well with a new design, this Triforce design, gain-on style, you know, Zelda stuff and so on. That's what, you know, I always think about it when I see this 3-dot structure. Also, when you hit the turning indicators, it replaces this one here in the front, or also the hazard lights. And matrix LED you can also get, and it's standard here for this VZ Extreme version, which is the top trim version for you today in glacier white here, by the way. So this white color, which then of course has a greater contrast here to the shiny gray parts we see all over the vehicle. The length here for the sports tourer or the estate is 4.66 m or 183 inches. You can also get the Cupra Leon hatch, which is then 26 centimeters or 10 inches shorter. It's just the overhang though, because the wheelbase for both is the same. That's why they will also have the same legroom in the rear. It's also a very interesting aspect for sure. But I mean, if you think about sporty driving, especially since the engine obviously is in the front, it's maybe not a bad thing when you have a little bit more weight in the rear here also with the sports tourer. Then you also can get performance brakes. They are also standard here for this VZ Extreme version. In this case here, Akebono performance brakes. You can also see here this really large brake calipers. Then the copper contrast, both from the calipers and from the wheels. 18 or 19 inch wheels. And once again, in the top version, 19 inch wheels are already standard. It is an all-wheel drive, which is somewhat front wheel biased. So front first and then also power sent to the rear. But then this one here, now with the facelift, also gets a torque split, like you know, for example, from the Golf R. So you can also send more power to the curved outer wheel. It even features a drift mode, which you can use on like a closed circuit and so on, or maybe like if you have like an area like this here, and which is maybe then wet or full of snow or something, then you can also use the drift mode that even, you know, extends this function, that more torque is sent to the rear and then onto the outer wheel and so on. Of course, nothing like for public roads and so on. Then the new design also for the rear, which is pretty cool because the light strip goes through here. It almost looks like a small Audi here now, don't you think so? And this tribal style Cupra logo, you know, the background is that it used to be a sports brand of Seat, like just a special sport edition of a Seat, and then they formed their own brand from it. If you hit the turning indicators or the hazard lights in the rear, you here also have a cascading turning indicator effect. And yeah, I think especially in the white color, it fits very well to the vehicle and the VZ logo. Again, for these top sports versions, there are different VZ models available, by the way. You can get even one for the plug-in hybrid, and you can get one for the hatch, and also here one for the estate from the pure combustion engine side. And this is especially here for the sports tourer for the estate. Only the estate gets the highest horsepower figure together with the all-wheel drive that is not available in the Cupra Leon hatch. So that's like a specific thing. And we can take a look under the hood. So basically you would start with 1.5 TSI. That one then is also the basis for the plug-in hybrid model. You have a 2-liter TDI and you have a 2-liter TSI in different horsepower specs, and then with some 300 horsepower for the hatch. But here in the estate you can get the 333 horsepower version, 4.8 seconds in the acceleration figure. All-wheel drive then also for this model, as I said, explained before, and then also with the torque split. So that's the most fun vehicle you can get. And yeah, you've maybe already seen this very short snippet there in the front. You can have so much fun with this vehicle, and especially since we lately driven so many electric vehicles, and I mean, they're great in performance when you accelerate straight. But this one is also, you know, to use in the corners and so on, and you just feel that you're driving with less weight than with the modern electric vehicles. So this is, I can already tell you so far, a true fun machine. one more important thing before we get to the interior. This one here features a DCC, adaptive suspension, dynamic chassis control, standard for the VZ models, otherwise an option. And so you can actively have this adaptive suspension, set the driving modes, and then it also adapts according to the driving mode, for example, stiffer in the sports mode and so on. And you know, I love comparisons, and I think you too. That's why here in a direct comparison, the estate model, the sports tourer, and also the hatch for you, that you can see some of the design differences. As I said, main difference is the length, 26 centimeters or 10 inches in the difference. And I mean, Leah just told me, by the way, that she really loves the hatch design. I think also, like, just from a pure design standpoint, I also prefer the hatch, but I think the tourer also looks cool. Of course, this one here has different proportions, definitely. Front is totally the same, as you can see here. Same color as well. And then here, of course, you have, let's say, a sportier design with this stronger hip area, I would say. One difference is, by the way, this one here is the plug-in hybrid VZ model. You can, of course, pick also the pure combustion engine VZ model for the hatch, but this one just happens to be the plug-in hybrid. And this one also gets another difference, because when you order the performance brakes, you have the Akebono, then here in the pure combustion engine model, and here these are the Brembo performance brakes. They are not as performant as the other ones. Here the plug-in hybrid also has lower horsepower figure, less acceleration and so on, just like as a side note info. But here the main thing is about the design differences, estate versus the hatch. Same wheelbase and just this shorter overhang here. Yeah, I think this one here probably design-wise works even better. And in the rear they are quite similar again, both hatch and estate, just that in this instance here, because it's a plug-in hybrid model, this one does have the fake exhaust. So the Autogefühl fake exhaust police has another case you have to deal with here. And to showcase here the difference between hatch and the estate, the sports tourer here. Front wheels, same height. Rear wheels also at the same position, so same wheelbase. And then you can see the different overhang here. Here, there you can see it. It is just like the longer overhang than here for the estate model. When we now get to the interior, let me give you a small introduction, because I want you to take a look at the user interface, especially because recently we've been testing so many all-new vehicles, new EVs, that really are somewhat complicated in the user interface. And now you get to a vehicle which has an older basis, an older platform, and you suddenly see, wait a minute, honestly, that was so much better and so much easier to control. So look out for these features, very interesting, definitely. Then, key fob here, this is high gloss black. Have a Cupra logo. Yeah, I would prefer something else maybe than high gloss black, but when it's fresh and clean, then it's nice. Oh, they also put like a nice microfiber accessory to it. Then door closing sound. It's really solid, nice. Rear. Yeah, that's a really solid door closing sound. And let me just activate the ignition one more time, because then we don't have this beeping. Here inside of the doors, top part is somewhat softened in the front, a little bit. Also a leather red cover from the inside. You can also get this Sennheiser sound system, and some of the ambient lighting is already integrated in the door. And also, let's see here, when I hit the turning indicator or the hazard lights, it also shows then here for the hazard lights in the inside of the doors. Why not? No covering at the inside of the door pocket in the lower part though, but straightforward controls to control the side mirrors, the window levers and so on. And I like this grey contrast that not everything is in black. Then also here a nice Cupra entry sill badge. And this is here also an interesting floor mat with leather red and the blue contrast stitching. And this is made from ocean, like collected ocean plastic, at least from a share. This is a good idea as well. The steering wheel also with real buttons, soon more deals to that. Even a cover here for the airbag pod and so on. So this is cool. Then the seats, you have a base seat, a sport seat with integrated head restraint. Or then this one, this is another option, the cup bucket seat. Made by Sabelt, special like sports equipment for the car sports equipment maker. makes the seats here looking really, really cool, right? But the question is, are they also comfortable? Materials-wise, by the way, these here are fabric, microfiber and leatherette, so it's also animal-free. The normal sport seat will also be with some microfiber and leatherette, and the base seat is fabric. And here, yeah, actually they're pretty comfortable, although they look so hard and sporty. The thing is, the seating area, like also at the ischial tuberosity, the sit bone, is a little bit harder than with a normal sport seat. But from the top part, you know, it's actually cozier and holds you tighter, and that takes, again, weight off the lower area. So, I mean, probably it depends on the body, which is better for you. I probably need to drive both like 1,000 kilometers to really give a final conclusion on that. I think I would maybe go with the normal sport seat because of the softer cushioning while sitting on them. But these are also pretty cool. So for these sporty seats, they're actually pretty comfortable. And with 189, 6'2", I still have enough headroom left. You find a good seating position. So yeah, I mean, already from the first impression in the interior, like this claim, could it be one of the coolest estates? That might work. And here, manual control of the steering wheel column, and it's a very smooth process how that feels. Welcome to this interior. Well, very sporty indeed, and of course the sport seats here, even for the passenger. It looks really amazing, doesn't it? And also has the electric function for the passenger seat, by the way, also very interesting to know. Then here you have this gray contrast, so it's not just plain black. So I think it's a good idea, also with contrast stitching. And here you also have this three-dimensional surface. You can feel it, you can also hear it a little bit. Glove box is dampened and with a interesting additional cubby hole there. Then you now, with the facelift, get the 13-inch infotainment system as standard, illuminated sliders, and also the software has been updated. It looks not the most modern, honestly, but it's quicker than before, and I can also take you on a short tour there very soon. Then in the middle console, what's interesting here on the side, you have a nice covering here, and when I feel it, left side, driver side, and here on the right side, on the driver side, like it's even more dampened below, you know, it's a little bit softer. That's really good, like when you touch your knee here on the middle console, that's a little bit softer. I think they could also have done it for the co-driver side, but of course it's more important to do it on the driver side. By the way, you maybe realized I always say driver and co-driver, you know, like WRC inspired, and you know, not always passenger seat. So yeah, that's a car enthusiast thing, nerd thing. Sorry about that. In the front part, 2 USB-C chargers, also inductive charging pad. This is also ventilated, so the smartphone does not overheat. Dual clutch transmission, shifting lever. And then you have the cup holders here. They are not adaptive, however they have different sizes at least. And then here the armrest could be a little bit softer for the elbow, honestly. But here you can adjust it in height and also in length, so both possible. 12-volt supply underneath. So that feels, looks, everything kind of solid. And also here from the driving position with steering wheel, shifting pedals on the steering wheel. Nice menu controls here with the volume down and up, right side to control something of the digital instruments. As an airbag cover, they also thought of that. And also, to me important, 2 important buttons, one for the driving modes and one to start up the vehicle or shut it down again. Driver POV, right side to control the digital instruments, left side here for the volume, for example, and the cruise control. And then here with this Cupra button, you can click through the different driving modes. And when you are in the comfort mode, for example, and then press and hold the Cupra button, then it directly hops to the Cupra mode. In the digital instruments, you can also have a lap timer actually, but this is cool, like with a big RPM meter. But you can also switch to this view, this is also nice, or then this, whatever you prefer. And with the main infotainment, the main thing to me is the climate unit. You have these sliders here, and it's good to have the sliders. They're also illuminated instead of just doing something in the infotainment system. Gotta say though that once they didn't respond, then I restarted the vehicle again, like the infotainment system, press and hold here for a longer time, and then it was working again. The software itself is good now. It's actually quicker than before. It could look better. It looks a little bit outdated from the looks, but it's quicker now, and Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is a nice wide integration as well. And also important to deactivate this speed limiter here, this new EU law chime. There we go. This is a nice shortcut to deactivate that. Well, I can tell you who is looking good in these seats. Leah defo does. We're also listening to the sound system, and I think it's decent. Very bass heavy, very intense from the bass. I think we've heard better ones, also worse ones. I would say it's not the most special, but decent, this level. Inside of the rear doors, hard pack here on the top part. Then we have nice structure right here and here. No covering at the inside of the doors. And then if you have these cup bucket seats, you also have the fabric in the same styling in the rear seats right here. And actually fairly comfortable. Middle part, the cup holders, they're not adaptive though. And the middle console now features 2 USB-C chargers, and here you have also a climate unit when the ignition is on. And when you sit behind these cup bucket seats, the legroom is still fine here, because it would be almost the same like with the normal sport seats. Since this one here, the Leon, no matter if you go for the hatch or the estate, you always have the longer wheelbase version of this platform. Whereas the Audi A3 and the VW Golf as the hatch have the shorter wheelbase. Here the Cupra, both the Octavia and also the Golf variant have the longer wheelbase version each. And that's why I can also sit here as a tall adult behind another tall adult. Difference, of course, here with the cup bucket seats is that here we have the carbon fiber, which looks amazing from the rear, but it's of course then harder for the knees when you like extend your legs a little bit. So there, the normal 2 seats, the base seat and also the standard sport seats, just have a softer back part there. But you have space here, and here then for your headroom is also fitting for tall adults for 189, 6'2", no problem. Quick comparison here, sitting in the hatch model and also with the normal sport seats. Here, first of all, headroom also works for tall people in the rear. And you can see, no matter if you go for the bucket seats or the normal sport seats, and hatch or estate is almost always the same legroom. Now to the trunk or the boot, which is at 620 liters. Let's take a look at that. And first of all, here with the facelift, you might wonder like, where can I open that? And you don't find anything until you really know it's here now, like the right tail lamp underneath, there is it. And you can of course also use the key fob, also kicking sensor. Then here, the cover, press once, slides backward. You can also fold it up. And there's also here this net for the doggos. It's also possible. And then here, this one also fits underneath vertically, no problem. The width here between the wheel arches is 1 meter or 40 inches. In the wheel arches a little bit more space, and the length here of the estate, the sports tourer, also more than 1 meter or 40 inches in the normal length. And the height, very important here, of course, then at 67 centimeters or 26 inches. Underneath there's even more space. Look at that, there's the subwoofer. Of course, if you would not have the subwoofer, there can be like a replacement tire, or there are also these, you maybe know these special replacement tires which can be put around the subwoofer, also possible. Here on the left side it's very interesting. This is here a real power socket in the trunk, and this one here, pressing, then you have like this semi-automatic towing hook, like this. I can press it again, and then I can fold it in again like this. And of course, really nice for the estate here, the remote release right and left. So this is perfectly usable. So yeah, one of the best compact estates trunks overall, I feel. And then here is more than 1 meters 80 or 71 inches in the total length. So this is really excellent. So what else can you wish more as for the trunk flexibility, or what's your take on that? Cupra mode. Ooh. You already hear the sound actuator. Whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot actually. So just to give you the difference, normal mode is like this, and then Cupra mode again. Okay, and then some acceleration, 60 to 100. That's it already. Yeah, nice performance definitely. I think that sound actuation is maybe a little bit exaggerated. Yeah, that's probably not that necessary. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, on the steering wheel it's easy. When you're in the drive profile and the infotainment system, a little bit harder. What you can also do is use the performance mode, and it's not that loud actually. Yeah, or what you can also do, for example, in individual mode. Also, when you talk about the DCC setting and the steering settings, so I like the individual mode because then I can set a stiffer steering response, but the DCC, the adaptive suspension, I can set to a very soft setting for the best comfort. That is my, yeah, that's like my favorite thing, because here in individual mode, then you can also change some of these settings. And then, for example, you can also change the engine sound here, you know, on purpose, and have, like, for example, the engine also on performance, but then not this kind of sound actuation like in the Cupra mode. So that's a good thing. You can configure your own individual personalized mode. Interesting here how the blind spot monitor is integrated here in the side ambient light. That's actually good. So you can see it once again when cars are coming now. There we go. And when I hit the turning indicator, it's also flashing like additionally. It's also a cool thing that you have another warning there. So very nice integration in combining like interior design and also these assistance systems features. And talking about the assistance systems, because soon we'll also do some winding corners. For that then here, cruise control, set the speed, or then also resume, and you can also increase the speed in here on the lower left, for example, and the speed to the car, distance to the car in front of us is being kept. Also reduce or increase the distance here, and everything with a nice separate button and so on. We can also activate the travel assist, and then as also keeping us in the lane actively. So I'm holding my hands on the steering wheel, but I'm not steering myself. Let's see here, the motorway does a slight left bend, and see here, very smooth way, very sophisticated actually. So I like that. Once again, the blind spot monitor. So yeah, very good from these level 2 assistance systems, definitely. And here on the motorway, I think the DCC is doing a good job. Comfort setting is a good thing for that. The DCC always rules in a certain spectrum, and although we have the 19-inch wheels here, I think it's still good from the comfort. Noise insulation, that could be better, honestly. Or what do you say as a... Yeah, so because we're here almost like 100 kilometers an hour, loud, 60 miles an hour. That is something at that price point. I mean, yeah, it starts lower, but then here with all the equipment, soon also talk about prices, it's kind of already quite expensive. And then I would expect a little bit lower NVH, definitely. So it's not really bad or something like that, but we have some competitors there that are definitely better, and also for that price. So should be more silent on the interior, honestly. But it's still a good motorway vehicle. You have a good feeling for the vehicle. Also here when you do some lane change and so on, yeah, you still feel that you are in this compact platform, you know, although this is the estate here and you have a longer overhang if you compare it to the hatch, it still, you know, gives you these hot hatch vibes, and more of that, of course, we can find out then very soon when we go into these winding corners. Now, anti-driving. Once again, the Cupra mode with the actuation. Yeah, Leah is holding tight now to the handle there. You can also now see the ambient lighting there in the front, because it's a little bit darker here now on the hill. It's super smooth in the handling. And now even uphill performance really good from the 333 horsepower. Now also the torque vectoring comes into place, because we have this torque split there at the rear axle. So first power is sent from the front to the rear, and at the rear it's being distributed right and left. And when I accelerate out of the corner, then I have more power at the curve outside wheel actually, and that's pretty cool. And nice precise steering, and the car handles really, really light. So it feels light. As I said earlier, it feels like a compact hot hatch. This says then compact hot estate, so to speak. And you can see here how smooth I go from left and right, and I don't have to be hard on the gas, just slightly. There we go. Steering could have a little bit more feedback though, I feel. I mean, even here in the Cupra mode, For this kind of sporty, over 300 horsepower car, I would have a little bit stiffer steering wheel, but it's maybe also just a matter of preference. But the cool thing to me is that it's really feeling so extremely agile. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I almost feel like I would be like on a WRC, test now or something like that. That's really amazing. So going uphill and in these corners, so much fun. So yeah, this is definitely one of the most fun estates here. I really love that. Of course, there's a big difference here, I feel, when you have summer tires versus winter tires. You know, in our winter test, we do have winter tires on this vehicle here, and they are of course not that good in the performance and the grip than the summer tires we had, on these vehicles here in summertime. So that is something I would say you feel the biggest difference. Also, the suspension here in the Cupra mode or in the sporty mode does a good job. Accelerating out here one more time, 100 kilometers an hour. This is really some ready stuff here. Yeah, it's also quite cold here today, so of course we cannot expect the best grip. Also have to be a little bit cautious here because the road is slightly wet, but yeah, so much fun in the corner. So yeah, is it one of the coolest estates? I mean, here driving fun, definitely really, really cool. One thing I have to say about these sport seats here in these corners, they're excellent here with keeping us tight here, especially in this shoulder area. That is amazing. However, from the ischial lower sitting bone or sit bone, and also the lumbar area, this is not ideal. So my verdict there would be I would stick with the normal sport seats. They are more comfortable, especially long term. But maybe you can test it at the dealer or something like that. So definitely here my initial thought was an all-new Audi A5 Avant. Interesting. Must be a test vehicle as well. So here, better in the shoulder, these cup bucket seats, but definitely less comfortable from the sitting. So yeah, I will stick with the normal sport seats in this case. And about fuel economy, you can drive this one with not too high speeds, with some 8 liters on 100 kilometers, 29 mpg US, 35 mpg UK. So this Cupra Leon estate begins £34,000 in the UK, 38,000 euros in Germany. We call it Sports Tourer in Germany. It's not a German word, but this abbreviation, some SP is also used. Then again, some use the ST as abbreviation. So there are different namings out there according to the markets. And as it stands here right now, remember, this is the 333 horsepower trim, then the VZ is combined with that, and also the Extreme trim, which then features the performance brakes, also the bucket seats on the interior, so everything full packed, plus maybe the towing hook, which is still an extra. Then you land at 64,000 euros, which is kind of hefty, very expensive. Yeah, one of the most expensive Cupras you can buy. But I can really say, in this case, it's kind of worth it because it's so much fun. You know, you get everything in it. About the bucket seats, I love them from the shoulder part, but I would get, for the better seating depth, I would get the normal sport seats for more comfort. So maybe not go for the Extreme version. But I had so much fun driving this one. And it is a compact estate. Yeah, there may be like larger estates which are better on the motorway, on the German Autobahn, like an Audi RS6, which is also like a dream estate and so on. But this one, because it is still on this compact platform, is lighter and so cool to put it in the corners that I really loved the driving experience. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Tell me your feedback about this vehicle. The most sinister, the most powerful and the most expensive Golf I have ever reviewed is this one here. This is the updated VW Golf R, recently facelift for all the Golf models and now also for the R version. We're going to drive it here today for you as the Black Edition. This is also one of the new things coming up, even for the US market. We'll tell you all about it. You need to know with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the now illuminated VW logo in the front. So this is then new with the whole facelift, also counts for the R, and then the light strip here leads over to the headlamps. And they have also been restyled, now in a more likable design. There were positive comments about that, because before that everyone said, yeah, the headlamps look better in the previous generation. Now they fixed them a little bit, let's take it that way. Optional IQ light, the Matrix LED, which is standard here also for the black edition. Then you already have in the front these cascading turning indicators. Black accentuations all over the vehicle, but you can also get the black edition in white. Yeah, then it would look like white body color, but then everything else, accentuations and wheels also in black, and they come always in black. You can see it also right here. 18-inch would be a standard Golf R wheel in the EU, 19-inch already standard for the black edition, 19 inches already standard in general for the Northern American market. And this one here is an extra on top. These are the forged wheels in a different design, and they also bring down the weight of the unsprung mass, so it's even better for performance. The length, 4.28 meters, 169 inches, typical hatch style. This is here their hot test hatch, so to speak. It's also available in the variant in the EU, the estate version. That is also, yeah, a very likable model, definitely adds about 1,000 euros on the price. Then we have this really blacked out style also in the rear. Added wing and new tail lamp design in a three-dimensional styling, and here once again when you hit the turning indicators they look even more spectacular. Then in the lower part, this is the most costly extra. You already have a performance exhaust, but if you want to have even better sound, then here the Akrapovic exhaust. This one adds more than 4,000 euros to the price, but yeah, at least sound-wise we can listen to that if it's really worth it. Now we'll take a look under the hood and beep, 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 because the daytime running light is on. That is more beautiful for you on the visual part. Before we open the hood, quickly about DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control. There has been a software update that is even more dynamic. So it's the adaptive suspension. It's 20 millimeters lower in comparison to the standard Golf, and it basically rules between the span of comfort and sportiness. It's also standard for the Golf R in general, and we'll also see how it performs here today. Then about the engine, 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, no gas struts. Put it up like this. This one here now at 333 horsepower, so 13 horsepower more than before. And the acceleration figure is at 4.6 seconds for the hatch. That's 0.1 seconds quicker than before. 0.2 seconds slower would be the Golf R variant, so at 4.8 seconds then. There's an all-wheel drive system, so front plus rear on demand. And the special thing is here with the Golf R that it has a torque split in the rear. And that means that you can send more torque to the curved outer wheel, that we can, push the car a little bit more into the corner. So this actually reduces the effect that you feel that it would be front wheel biased. You know what I mean? So from the power you can send to the rear, then you can actually distribute it between left and right. And this really helps in the driving dynamics. And you can even use a drift mode if you like, and if you would have like an open field. And yeah, I mean, when it's dry, also not that good for the tires and so on. So, but it's at least available, let's take it that way. And this black edition here automatically comes with the performance pack, which also enables you to use special driving modes and also unlocks the top speed from 250 to 270 kilometers an hour. Launch control. Now I want to do an interesting test actually with the launch control, either in the race mode plus ESC to sport, or then in the drift mode, which is then usually thought for that you can really like drift it when it's a little bit wet, also like in this open area and so on. However, also take a look at the influence that the drift mode will even have on the acceleration, how much more loose the tires are actually. Let's check it out. First, just start race plus ESC sport. Now, with the drift mode, which automatically goes basically in an ESC sport mode. Interesting, isn't it? There you have seen actually that with the drift mode, even just when accelerating straight, we put some tire stamps on the road actually with a little bit of wheel spin when accelerating, which is of course spectacular, but not good for the performance. Then with the normal race mode plus the ESC Sport, which enables the race start, the launch control, then actually we could get better traction on the ground. So very interesting, that comparison, isn't it? Door closing sound. is okay, but honestly I also heard it better for the Golf in the past. Not sure. Then here, inside of the doors is a little bit softened up just in the top. Then optional real carbon fiber decal element. That is, of course, looks more premium and so on, but you have to pay for it extra, about 1,000 euros actually. Then the grey microfiber, that's actually pretty decent. And we also have fabric on the inside of the doors. Then the R also comes with a special R steering wheel, blue contour stitches, no alternative to animal skin yet from the material. And also special for the R, you have here the hashtag capacitive BS buttons. The GTI now goes back to the real buttons. This one still has it because you have the R button to select the driving modes here. What they have done, however, is make them less sensitive, so there will be less unintentional press. That's what they say. We're going to find out if that's really true. The seats, these are the standard seats, at least in the EU. Fabric on the inside and the grey microfiber. They look cool, also feel nice. It's also good that they don't get that hot. In the US configurator, I can only see the otherwise optional animal skin here for the Golf R, however. Well, in the seating comfort here, ergonomics is really good. Also for tall persons, you also get caged in, hold tight without being too tight. So it's really good. And with 189 602, there's a lot of headroom left. So I really like the seating position. They now, by the way, also update here the shifting pedals. They are larger here now, you can see, so you can easily hit them. Also, I'm looking forward to how they perform while driving. The steering wheel, up and down, in and out, manual control, that's fine. Interior cockpit overview. First of all, here the optional real carbon fiber is even more visible right here. That looks really stunning, yeah, if you want to pay the money for it. Then soft touch here for the dashboard, also structured, and the glove box is also properly dampened when it falls down. Just here, I'm not sure if that could be a little bit more aligned here from the gaps. Shouldn't it? What do you think? Then new here with the facelift for all the Golf models, and 13 inches, also standard for GTI and for the Golf R, so it's bigger than before. Therefore, on the inside, it's also larger. It's also quicker than before, a little bit more reliable. Not saying that VW has the best software in the world now, but it's definitely a very useful upgrade. Then the middle console in the lower part. Here, the shifting lever is integrated. Only DSG, dual clutch transmission. The manual is no more. Nowhere, actually. Then in the very front, you have two USB-C chargers here. Then a nice illumination. That's actually pretty cool. But then for the inductive charging pad, you have to put your smartphone underneath. It is cool though, so then it shouldn't overheat. But I mean, I think for mine, it should still fit somehow. But then you... who thought about this? It probably was designed when, I don't know, there were, I don't know, like mini smartphones, no idea. Then here, this area, you can make yourself a cup holder or push it back again, that's also possible. And armrest, some space underneath, but this is here like, really solidly built, and also soft then here for your elbow. So yeah, it's a nice position here, definitely. So it's not too much. Some things could be more manual, like the climate unit is here then in these sliders, and you have some hotkeys like here for the climate unit or something. However, to access the driving modes, as I said, that's the one advantage of this steering wheel with the hashtag capacitive buttons. You have the R mode button here. Then the driver POV. I have to say this feedback from the R button is not the best. You press it and it's still a little bit through thin air. Yeah, I really don't like it. The only advantage is, yeah, that you can click through the modes here, but still, it doesn't really, there we go. When you press and hold and then release it, then it hops to the race instead of press and hold and it directly jumps. You have to release it first and then it jumps to the race. Strange. Then here the instruments, you have different views available. I like this large RPM meter view, for example, but you can also, do it like that. Then head-up display. Sometimes flickers on camera, doesn't do for your real eye, and also appears bigger on your real eye. And then here, the infotainment system, said it's better now as for the hardware, it's more stable, it's quicker, and a better overview. Also, for example, here to the assistance systems, if you want to quickly deactivate some of the assistance systems, that's definitely easier possible now. And pretty neat feature, there is this emotional startup feature, and it works like that. Usually when you start up the vehicle, it just goes like a little bit in the RPM, you know, like boom, 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 boom. That's it. Not that very loud. But then you can press and hold the start-stop engine button and then press the brake. Then it just this emotional startup goes to like 2,500 RPM. And then you also hear that more prominent from the exterior. Rear seats, first of all, inside the doors, all hard pack here, but we have the nice microfiber and also felt covering from the inside of the rear doors. That's nice. Then here the R seats, they have these pockets here at the back part. This is all leather red. Another pocket in the lower part, top tether for the child seats, and also ISOFIX on the outsides each. Then we can fold down this here. These are not adaptive cup holders though, but this is then the ski hatch you can fold down. And yeah, the offering of space is limited, especially for legroom when a tall person is driving like me. That's the thing, short wheelbase, only the A3, the Audi A3 and the Golf hatch have the short wheelbase here in these siblings. The Cupra Leon, the Skoda Octavia and also the Golf variant, the estate version here of this one, they have longer wheelbase version, so then you have more legroom. So if rear legroom is important, you would go with the Golf R variant. Then the headroom, this is actually fine with 189 602, that's okay. And the base ergonomics is also fine, it's just that I don't have too much legroom here. Let's take a look at the trunk or the boot. Flipping the logo to opening it, and the cabin trolley also fits in vertically. Then 1.40 meters in width here, and the length about 75 centimeters or 29 inches. And underneath I have more space, this is in here than the subwoofer in this case, and 1/3 split here of the seats or the ski hatch, and the total length is about 140 meters or 55 inches. And the height here of the boot is like this, yeah, it's about 68 centimeters or 27 inches. And now everyone, it's time to take the most powerful Golf to the most powerful motorway, the German Autobahn. Yeah, that was movie scenic alike, right? We're in the race mode. Let's use this Auffahrt already. Beautiful job here. S combination, really nice. Now I'm a little bit more on the brakes, so we can accelerate out from lower speed. So from 50 and let's go. That should be enough for now, 240. And still at these high speeds, I mean, yes, wind noise have picked up significantly, but like chassis wise, it's still behaving really nicely. This has been set up on the Nürburgring Nordschleife as well. Now hard on the brakes, really good braking performance as well. Felt actually really stable and nice on the German Autobahn here at these high speeds. So kudos to that indeed. It's really cool. Let's do some lane change here. 120 kilometers an hour, like 70 miles an hour. Really nice. So here steering input also really progressive, don't have to steer much. Fine feeling, no dead zone area. The car feels indeed very light, agile and compact. That's pretty cool. Also when we did this initial S combination, for example, that's really nice. Here in the race mode, although the suspension is tuned on the sportier note, we still have enough comfort left, definitely. So this DCC is doing a great job in delivering both, actually. So just to show you that the difference, if we go to the comfort mode, for example, then the suspension is like this threshold is being shifted to one side. Now it's a little more forgiving here. This is like this, maybe these motorways where you have these concrete plates and they're connected to each other with a transverse joint or something. Then you often feel that, but here it's evened out pretty well. 19-inch wheels on there, like standard on the Northern American market or standard also for the Black Edition everywhere. If you want most comfort and can get the Golf R with 18-inch wheels in your market, that would also be possible, because with 18-inch wheels it will be more comfortable. Then here also I'm picking this really, you know, like this, there were some holes in the road probably, they fixed that, so that's nicely done. Yeah, pretty cool. Really like the suspension. Then we can go back to the race mode. We can also activate it here. Let's go one more time. Nice. And that's 200 again, 125 miles an hour. Yeah, I mean, wind noise, yes, the Golf is not the most silent vehicle. It's also still a compact segment. So, but the stability it has at high speeds, really, and also when we're at high speed and do a lane change here, it feels like nothing, you know. So the car can handle higher speeds really easily from the confidence it gives you. So, fan of the steering, fan of the DCC, not a fan of the noise insulation necessarily. I would say comfortable is like 120, 130 kilometers an hour, like 70, 80 miles an hour. That's comfortable from the noise insulation part or something like that. Also, when we shift ourselves here, the shifting pedals, they can't be missed because they are larger now. So you can shift down yourself, shift up yourself. That's a lot of fun actually. And also with this Akrapovic exhaust, we just get even more feedback from that. You know, that's really, really cool. We can also get off this this parking lot there to get onto the motorway even quicker again. To show you one more. It's really a lot of fun, definitely. So in this compact segment here, definitely among the fun machines. We recently had the BMW 135. So that is then also in this new generation. And that was also a lot of fun and really powerful. And because you always ask me for these comparisons, they are indeed also direct competitors. The Golf feels, let's say, a little bit more upright, a little bit more conservative in driving, let's take it that way. The BMW feels even sportier, I have to say. The suspension, I would say, is giving you here more comfort, more forgiving when there are some bumps. But the BMW, I would say, gives you even more driving fun. So, and that's tough to top here with the Golf R actually. So just from like this, I'd say, perceived driving fun. Oh, the Akrapovic exhaust, nice when you get on the gas, and then sometimes happens when you leave off the gas, and then that's pretty cool. Blop, 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 blop. That's pretty fun. And well, let's now just shift ourselves. That's cool. Nice clicking feedback. We had some nicer shifting levers, which, you know, hammer in more. That would have been cool. Yeah, and of course it would be nice still to have a manual option or something. You know, that would be still cool to have that. But in the US, it actually had a high take rate, about 40%. But they said it didn't still really pay off because in other countries the manual was not that thought after, and then it didn't really financially pay off to still offer that. That's the thing, you know. By the way, what about when you are in the comfort mode? Then the RPMs are lower, suspension is softer, as I mentioned earlier. And I have to say, really, does it really pay off that much to use the R button? I'm not so certain about that, because to me it doesn't give you the best feedback. Now it's less sensitive, so it doesn't happen so much then that you press it unintentionally or something. But then again, you have to say, it's harder to press now. So there's pro and con, at least on the other side with the heated steering wheel. That definitely, you don't hate it that much unintentionally now with this new software setup. And then assistance systems, let's check it out. Here, set the adaptive cruise control. There's also the travel assist available. You can pick either travel assist, ACC, normal, or the speed limiter. And here the travel assist also keeps you in the lane actually. And see here, it does it in a very smooth way. So that is actually well done. And I can also show you the blind spot monitor integrated here in the left mirror. Now, yeah, there is. So that is very visible, good feature definitely to have that. Really adds to safety. So yeah, I mean, assistance systems wise, everything works well so far, definitely. And now we get you some more off motorway driving, also like how agile it is when we get off the motorway. And I think for that one more time we go to the race mode or something like that. It's actually pretty nice. Drift mode, of course, is nothing for public roads. It's a nice turning indicator sound as well, right? Really classic one, not too exaggerated. Sometimes we have pretty weirdo runs, but this is actually fine. And like now driving like 100 or something, that feels like nothing. Now it's really pushed into the corner. Again, the car is not too heavy, so don't have to be afraid of that. Really, look at that, how smooth the corner's being carried. Hardly anything to do on the steering wheel, and then I can accelerate out with that torque split. Nice. And the torque split then gives us the confidence that we can really take this corner also like when we accelerate out with the all-wheel drive. Nice. Yeah, so also when you accelerate out while cornering, yes, it is a front-wheel driven platform and it does feel different than you would drive a pure rear-wheel driven sports car or something like that, but since also so much power sent to the rear wheels and then also with this torque split, they really have achieved that you feel this front wheel bias as least as possible. And I mean, it also has advantages. It keeps you more on the track when there are some slippery situations. There's just not this high danger that the car would slip out from the rear and you crash against anything there, you know. So this is always definitely pro and con, but it handles so well. Also, if you go some, you know, at lower speeds into some slalom area here, this is also the advantage of taking like a normal vehicle, not building like this super high car or something. On the one hand, you get a normal car feeling and you say, yeah, I could just take it to work every day and back again. But then again, you can unleash the wolf here in this vehicle. And then it is a very sporty vehicle. That's the cool thing about the Golf R. And also when we accelerate here out again, beautiful. You really feel this torque split, especially when you do stuff like that. And sometimes you would wait maybe for the corner to be over and then accelerate harder. But here you can really start accelerating in the corner and it pulls you out there. So you can actually help exiting a corner with the throttle. That's you know how it works here, and that's pretty cool feeling actually. So yeah, really like the driving behavior here of the Golf R. About pricing, starts at $48,000, at least the sofa version. Let's see how it behaves with the facelift. In Germany, this one here starts at 55,000 euros without the black edition. This adds 5,000 euros because then you have the bigger wheels and some of the performance pack extras and so on. But then with the exhaust and some other extras, this one can almost reach 70,000 euros. And yeah, as I said, the most expensive Golf I have ever reviewed actually. So yeah, then you start thinking what else you could possibly get for that. However, in the compact segment here, among the compact hot hatches, has a great driving experience. So very agile handling, and you exactly know what you're doing with this vehicle. And with the technology, with the torque split and so on, you can also make it, let's say, least front wheel bias as possible for this very platform. So that's actually pretty cool. Recently, we also discussed in the comments about the reliability of the Volkswagen Group in general here at this moment. So at this moment, I would really lease new and then give it away after the leasing. Buying and keeping is at the moment not the best idea because of the bad reliability figures. And you've seen it in the comments, everyone who commented on that, most of them had bad experience with buying used and keeping them for a longer time. So we gotta check out that before. If you are a Golf customer, and especially a Golf R, please post your comments. How about the reliability if you are a long-term owner? So we can also prove that, or maybe some also say, hey, I bought the Golf and it runs for 10 years without any issues and without any warranty problems and so on. So yeah, always welcome to join the comments about the concise customer experience, because then we can deliver even more here for the community as a whole. Today we're driving the evil twin of the VW ID4 or the ID5. This is here the Cupra Tavascan. Sits on the same platform, but it is quite different already from the looks here. You can see, and even more details with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. In the front is somewhat like a supercar look already here for an electric vehicle. The Cupra lettering here and the logo in this tribal style. And yeah, in the lower part, it doesn't look EV-alike. As I said, more like a SUV performance car or something like that. Then you have this daytime running light signatures. It always reminds me a little bit of Zelda, you know, and Ganon and so on. And yeah, who has thought of the Triforce here as well? If you played that game, tell me in the comments. Then we go towards the side profile. Of course, you can also get a matrix LED for that here, by the way. And here the length is 4.64 m or 183 inches. So rather than in the compact dimensions. And you can see why it's rather than ID5, because it has this coupe styling look. Here, these simple rubber frames around the windows, I have to say, at that price point, maybe not enough. Yeah, that's one thing I see from the exterior. Wheels, always large, 19 to maximum 21 inch, and then also forged wheels are actually even available. So large wheels, these are the largest ones available. We'll see about that, how it turns out. You can also get it with DCC as the adaptive suspension. We also have it equipped with this very vehicle right here. And if we follow it, well, it's always been a design object for sure. And even more so in the rear, begins already right here. And then the light strip goes all the way through, including this illuminated Cupra logo here in the central part that looks, once again, look at that. Such a huge Cupra lettering right here. And VZ, this is then the performance version, the all-wheel drive version, because you get a rear-wheel drive version, 6.8 seconds in the acceleration figure, or this one here, the VZ, the all-wheel drive version, 1 electric motor per axle, and then you are at 5.5 seconds in the acceleration figure. Yeah, and we'll take a look at that very, very soon. And is there a frunk or not? Let's take a look here. Sadly, no, there is none. So you can refill the wiper fluid here, and that's basically it. But this is interesting here, right? Like, look at that. Like, who thought about this? Yeah, really interesting. That is basically all of this design. Why not? Battery size, by the way, it's 77 kilowatt hours net, and recharging 135 kilowatt peak, and that will give you like 10 to 80% state of charge in about 28 minutes. The real world range, we'll test this vehicle here thoroughly, motorway, dynamic driving and so on, and at the end of the day give you then our final realistic world consumption, and then also calculate the range then for you at the very end of this review. Yeah, I wanted to show you this cool effect here when it's a little bit darker here in the shadow. Yeah, if you have collected enough Triforce pieces in Zelda, then they also appear yellow in the Cupra Tavascan. Here the turning indicators or hazard lights. I think it looks really cool in the front already, doesn't it? If you have these matrix LED here in the rear, pretty cool also with the cascading effect. And it's not only cascading, if you come around here to the side, you can see it's also layered behind each other. Pretty cool, isn't it? And better to see in the shadow here, even the central Cupra logo is illuminated. Cool, right? Let's check out the interior. The car key, yeah, like all the group keys, has the Cupra logo in this case here, but the high gloss black, not my favorite. The door handles are flush here, but you can grab inside, and door closing sound. Solid rear. Yeah, it's also solid, just not again here that you have these rubber lips here around the windows, not my favorite. Then inside of the doors, here is also somewhat soft touch and dramatic design here also right around here. Then this typical Cupra copper accentuation and nice holes on the inside as an additional design element also for the ambient lighting. Blue then in the styling here. However, no felt covering for the inside door pockets. And steering wheel here with hashtag capacitive BS buttons, sadly. They don't give you a feedback when the vehicle is off. They do give a feedback when it's on, so it's all by software. But what's good, here the drive mode selection, left side but also right side directly to the Cupra mode. This is a real button on the steering wheel, so that's actually good. The material here, however, is not animal-free yet in the Tavascan. That's better definitely with the ID models by Volkswagen. Now it gets really interesting here in the cockpit. First of all, the seats. Beautiful job, look at that. There's a blue microfiber and the gold or the copper accentuation, they shine from the background. So this is a cool job here for the sport seat. This is then also animal free. You get the base seat with fabric or then here optional with microfiber. However, they also offer a cup seat with animal skin. This should be actually ruled out or also replaced with a high-grade leatherette or something. But this is already good comfort. I recommend to go either with these seats or when you want to have them like a little bit cooler, so the fabric will stay a little bit cooler in very hot summer days than the microfiber as well. This is then cozy in winter time, and yeah, a lot of headroom left here with one A9 or 6 2, no problem. A panoramic roof is a fixed one actually, and this can only be opened here in this slider. So there you can see, and it goes then all the way across. I had it closed now because then we can see better the interior deals and so on. So this goes all the way and slide it forward and again to close it. As for the cockpit, I mean, look at that. It's like a supercar cockpit once again. This is really impressive to see. Look at that. Also then blue and soft touch on the top part and these copper accentuations. And yeah, this looks really like a machine, isn't it? Like a, I don't know, maybe like an airplane more style. And yeah, this is also then here rather soft this covering. Cup holders are adaptive. Then a split opening for the armrest, space underneath. Just the top part here is actually not soft enough, and also when you rest your elbow on it, sometimes, yeah, strange to listen to, like these rattling sounds. And the thing is, for the steering wheel, it's not high enough. You see here, you cannot really rest your elbow on it unless you drive like this or something. And yeah, this is not really cool. And what's cool is that you always have one size here of the infotainment system. Always 15-inch, really large. Largest they also offer in the in the ID models, on the Passat, Tiguan and so on. Sliders are illuminated here in the lower part, also with a nice visualization inside, so you don't have to do the temperature in the screen. You can still do it in the screen, but you can also use the sliders here. At least you want to switch back and forth from, let's say like, for example, from Google Maps and to the climate unit and back again, click the last thing you clicked again, and then it switches back and forth. So that's a good thing to control it. Apple CarPlay and Auto is available wirelessly, and the thing is that it's a massive software upgrade here. If you compare that to like Leon, for example, or Formentor, it's really old school. This is way quicker than before, and has better hardware behind it as well. So it's a big step forward for Cupra here with this one. And the steering wheel has a good size actually. Just these instruments, they're really tiny. They are also, in this case, then not connected anymore to the steering wheel. Yeah, by that I mean the speed is always visible. That's the main thing. And you also have a head-up display. Would really be looking forward. What do you think here about this cockpit? Switch gear, by the way. Forward for drive, reverse, or then here when you're forward, you can go to the B mode. That's then stronger recuperation. I really think design-wise here, this like this roof of Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi, isn't it? What do you think? And here underneath, there is an inductive charging pad. It's also cooled. That's very important. But you can also use this cable connection, so both is possible. And calculating a charging stop, here I made from like Barcelona area to Madrid now. And here you can see, actually, it's just one charging stop then for 34 minutes. So this like this dynamic calculating where and what to charge and for how long. Rear seats. So at the inside of the doors, this is sadly all hard pack material. And also here you have this, on the one hand, nice neoprene material like in the middle part here. However, I think it should be more attached to the material underneath. So build quality wise, this should be a little bit better, I feel. The microfiber is really close to the seat. It is also nicely done, so the same nice microfiber than here on the rear part. ISOFIX in the lower part, and you fold these open and they stay in place, and then you can close them later again. And the comfort in itself is also decent here. The seats are quite voluminous. They still have enough legroom left, so 4 tall Ls can easily drive here. Also headroom wise, it's a coupe style form, but it's getting really close, but still works. Then you could fold down this, not adaptive though, but you can use this one also as a ski hatch. And can I also sit in the middle part here? Let's see. Yeah, it's getting close, somewhat possible. Yeah, the seats are very voluminous, so maybe for emergency situations. And the floor mats are just flying around in the rear. Yeah, I like when they're a little bit more attached. But yeah, maybe it's me paying too much attention to details, I don't know. But that's also my job, isn't it here? And I know you love these details. Take a look at the trunk or the boot. Opening is actually underneath here, underneath the P letter. Then 540 liters, and here's a meter of 40 inches in width. And the length is approximately, yeah, it's like 93 centimeters or 36 inches. At the moment here, full luggage setup inside. Let's take that out and show you more of the features underneath and how it looks like when it's empty. So like that. And underneath here, There's one layer, you can also set that whole thing lower down, or then another one, and then there's also like a small charging cable space underneath. To fold the seats, however, you always have to go around and then fold the seats from here like this. Drive profile, Cupra. Plop. Woo! That was 30 to 100 kilometers an hour. Really nice. Very decent acceleration. 5.5 seconds is the acceleration figure, the official one, to 100 kilometers an hour. Now 60 to 100. Oh. Plop, that's again. Wow, super quick, super quick. So this is the magic of this all-wheel drive version. One electric motor in the front, one in the rear. Yeah, and the rear electric motor is always stronger because it's the base setup. Usually you have a rear-wheel drive. Then at 6.8 seconds, which will also still be more than enough for sure. But of course here you just have this extra punch to give you more acceleration, just a little bit more fun if you need it. However, there is a big but with the all-wheel drive system, and well, actually two. First of all, the price, of course, so you'll pay extra for the electric motor, maybe three. Second thing is it will be a little bit less efficient, and the third very major issue is actually that the turning circle difference is 1.3 meters. So like turning circle diameter. So if you want parking in and out easier U-turn, you stay with the rear-wheel drive. If power is all important to you, then you would go here with the all-wheel drive version. And we start doing some motorway action here as well. See also about noise insulation and so on. At the very end, our driving part will tell you more about the efficiency and consumption and everything about that. Here on the motorway, starting at about 90 kilometers an hour. Now we can go to 120 soon. So like 60 miles, something like that so far. It's actually very silent, so I like that. First of all, the serenity from the electric drivetrain, yes, but also rolling noise. Although these here are the 21-inch wheels, so the largest wheels that are available. It's very nice. So astonishingly silent and refined here in this interior. I really like that. And yeah, we see that obviously it has taken something from the ID7 maybe already. So very nice. It feels actually very planted here also on the motorway. So far the road was quite good. We'll also later test some more destroyed roads, see how about the comfort of these 21-inch wheels then as for that. At the same time, the car is not too large, so you also don't feel that you would not really fit in the lane or that it's getting too much or something here when it's a little bit crowded on the motorway. Here on the left side of the steering wheel, these are all capacitive buttons, yes, but they give you somewhat of a feedback. And then you can also control the cruise control here, for example, go 1 kilometer step plus and minus, for example. And with the set or resume button, you can also then either normally resume or set the current speed you're driving in. Distance is being kept to the car in front of you. And let's also see that we activate the active lane keeping assist. So now it's also being actively kept in the lane. See how smooth this is being done. So far, no hectic steering movement. Oh, that's a nice blue of this A3 convertible, right? True Thomas blue. But our Atacama desert color here on the exterior today is also pretty nice, right? What you realize here, by the way, by driving is, so here now assistance systems are set, and here the the elbow rest is like it's really firm, really stiff. And at the same time, it's just too low, So I would supposed to keep your hands on the steering wheel during the assistance systems, but then here they're just flying in the air. It's okay, of course, but there are situations where the other cars offer like a nicer armrest, like this, and then it's just too far away from the steering wheel. Just have to know that. But I have to say, this car, and we also do some winding corners soon, it can do both. It's really relaxing on the motorway, also long Germany. Seats are actually really nice and comfortable, microfiber surface here. The fabric seat will even stay a little bit cooler in summer, by the way, when it's really, really hot. Remember, if you take the panoramic sunroof here, it can also get very hot, but at least you do also have that shade there you can apply. Most important thing, of course, is not to go for the cup bucket seats because they are animal skin only. They will get even hotter then. By the way, here, automatic lane change. I just tip the turning indicator and then the car does an automatic lane change in the travel assist. So there you can see how refined these assistance systems are. Acceleration from standstill. Plop. Woo! That was 0 to 90 already. A little bit downhill though, but very impressive from that performance. And now we can do some winding corners, accelerate out of the corners as well. That's really nice. Lovely handling from that steering wheel. Woo! That's a lot of fun. I mean, really precise from that handling in the steering wheel. So no dead zone area and so on. DCC in the Cupra mode set to the stiffest node, so I have best feedback. And when the roads are very well done here, it's also no problem. So it's not uncomfortable, and only when there would be a little bit more destroyed. Of course, at some point the electric vehicles are higher in weight, so when the corners are getting tighter inside the corner, then you also do feel the weight. Other than that, the center of gravity is low. That of course really helps you in the whole handling performance, and that is really a lot of fun. I like that. Yes, lighter sports cars are more fun, definitely the case, but you can get great performance also out of these electric vehicles, and then you hardly feel anymore it's an SUV or this crossover. It rather feels a little bit lower, and this gives you really nice feeling. So indeed feels sportier than an ID4 and so on. So a very good job here with doing the chassis work and suspension setup and so on. Really love that. As for all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive, actually this one of course gives you great performance also when accelerating out of the corners. At the same time, when you have a rear-wheel drive version, yeah, then the thing is that of course you have this rear-wheel drive characteristics, which can also be even more fun, so to speak. So you always have to consider that. By the way, in the Cupra mode, there is a significant recuperation when I lift my foot off the accelerator pedal. When I'm in the normal mode, here I can also, by the way, individually tune the DCC from minus to plus. I can, for example, have a very comfortable individual mode and then go to the Cupra mode to have the sporty setting. So normal mode, the car is just rolling when I lift my foot off the throttle, unless I go into the D mode. Then I have strong recuperation, one pedal driving feeling. You can set that and drive like that, or when you're going like downhill for a longer period of time, for example. Yet again, the thing is that when you start up the vehicle once again, it's getting resetted. So it's not a permanent solution. It always starts in one mode, and that is a thing just mandatory by law actually. But yeah, dynamic wise, it's really also a lot of fun. Once again shows it's great in the acceleration, a lot of fun dynamic driving. At the same time, we've seen it's a very nice Autobahn cruiser. So yeah, very good performance in all these different aspects, a lot of fun. At the same time here, the seats also keep us tight in these corners, so we don't fly around too much inside the vehicle at all. Yeah, and the DCC, good suspension, both comfort and sportiness at the same time. Just, I mean, these 21-inch wheels, if you have more destroyed roads and so on, then you should think about getting these wheels twice. They do give you that even sportier, more precise, direct feeling on the road. Said, as long as the road is yeah, nice and well done and so on. So here behind me is, by the way, the Cupra headquarters in Martorell in Spain near Barcelona. And what could we score as for the consumption for today, including topography changes, longer motor ride, 1 kilometer 60 miles an hour, but also with including our performance driving and acceleration, some 19 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, so like 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, means a concise rearward range of around 400 kilometers or 250 miles. Not too much, of course. However, you can also score some better consumption figures, of course, if you only do rather constant speed driving and so on. But I rather tend to give you figures that are more realistic, that also can be achieved, for example, in wintertime, or here, for example, in a hotter day where the AC is also running frequently and have your different speed scenarios and so on. By the way, towing here with the all-wheel version, maximum 1.4 tons. And price, also very interesting. It starts at 56,000 euros, taking it as a German reference price, with the base model. And here the all-wheel drive version will easily, with extras, exceed 60,000 euros. That's of course not cheap at all. Remember that the VW ID4 is available at a way cheaper price, for example, and they're basically on the same platform. This one is also built in China. Well, they do that to save costs. At the same time, it is sold more expensive. Well, that's image and of course the design. You get this unique approach on the exterior and on the interior. What do you think about this one? Tell me in the comments and also compare the competitors. This is the new VW ID5 in the sporty GTX trim with Thomas and Autogefühl, so to speak the coupe version of the ID4 electric vehicle. And behind me, what a beautiful, majestic scenery here today for you in Austria. This is the Wilder Kaiser or the Kaisergebirge, which means Empire's Mountain or Wild Emperor. And the VW Empire, after taking a hit as the first Death Star was destroyed, after Dieselgate a couple of years ago, the VW Empire wants to strike back with electric vehicles. And this is one of the new ones for them. Let's take a look if this is going to work and how sporty does it actually drive. How different is it from the ID4? In the front we have the typical closed-off grille, all set on the electric vehicle performance with best aerodynamics. And we can see a nice light signature here, all the way horizontal, split by the logo in this retro styling here as they used to, really decades ago. And the main headlamp here automatically comes with the ID4. With the ID4 it's optional. With the ID5 the matrix LED is standard equipment. The GTX version, you don't have to go for the GTX, you can also go for base versions, but the GTX then here has this special sporty lower grille in that kind of honeycomb style, and this really striking color is called King's Red. So it's about kings and emperors today here in this Autogefühl episode. When we take a look at the side profile, this is of course the biggest difference to the VW ID4. The ID4 rather continues with that roofline, classic SUV styling, and here we have that falling roofline, which makes this vehicle here a little bit more aerodynamic. Definitely sportier styling because here that hip area is also more, just more prominent. We also have special wheels on this vehicle. Usually it comes 19 to 21. 20-inch would be standard for the GTX, and these here are the optional 21-inch wheels. Let's see how the comfort plays out, either base suspension or the optional DCC, the adaptive suspension. For a crossover look, however, they do keep also in the GTX version here these crossover wheel arches. 4.60 m or 181 inches is the length. Of course, the wheelbase just the same with the ID4, ID4 and ID5. Just the rear overhang is a little bit longer because of the different styling, but not big of a difference. Here we can see you have this wing that actually channels the air below that. That's very interesting. And I really like this very modern rear lamp signature that looks kind of like, this technology styling. The GTX model, by the way, gets once again different accentuations here in the lower part, with this, it's very interesting. There's a lot of, it's actually quite expensive to do it in that way then. Big black cladding, then silver conscious in the lower part, and then you also have the GTX badges. It will be interesting, does it also drive like a GTI, just X, here with also soft off-road capabilities or what? The ID5 is available as rear-wheel drive model or all-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive is then 10.4 or 8.4 in the acceleration figure, these two trims. If you want to have all-wheel drive, then it's the GTX right here, one electric motor in the rear, one in the front, and then you're at 6.3 seconds in the acceleration figure, 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. In all cases, the ID5 gets the 77 kWh net battery, the big one from the ID4. In the ID4 you can still pick one, also a more entry-level version. However, since the electric ranges are not that high yet, usually experience from the ID4 around 400 kilometers or 250 miles in good conditions, I would definitely pick always the biggest battery. In the ID5, it's the biggest one anyway. Turning indicators cascading because you have that matrix LED light. And in the front, the lower part of the daytime running light is replaced. And now it gets really interesting as for recharging and battery specifics. The Pro version, there are two Pro versions with rear-wheel drive, and here the GTX model. They share the same battery capacity of 77 kilowatt hours net. However, different supplier, so different cell chemistry. The Pro versions, rear drive versions, get the one from CATL, the Chinese supplier. Also the Fisker Ocean will receive that, so it tells us something about the charging curve for the Fisker Ocean as well already. And here the GTX model gets the one from LG, the Korean supplier. And they indeed differ in recharging. That's very interesting. So first of all, AC recharging is 11 kilowatt both, and then DC recharging is 155 kilowatt now for the GTX and 135 kilowatt peak for the Pro models. And the interesting thing now is that the 5 to 80% SOC value, state of charge value, is 36 minutes for the GTX and 29 minutes, now 10 minutes faster with that software update, for the Pro versions. So you might, well, wait a minute, I pay more money and get the overdrive version and then slower charging. It depends. This one has a higher peak charging curve. So the charging curve peaks higher, but then falls earlier. The other one doesn't peak that high, but then stays more consistent. So if you speed up the GTX on the motorway, you know, hammer it all the way through, and then go for recharging and do like, let's say 10 to 50, 10 to 60%, this one will be faster. If you go for the other one then, and maybe have like more like really like 10 to 80%, 10 to 85% charging, then the Pro versions will be faster. So it really depends on your user profile. High gloss piano lacquer here for the key fob. I wish there will be some days where we see alternatives to that actually. Then the door handles, flush door handles, they're kind of like integrated, and you just press them from behind, and that's basically it. Door closing sound. It's quite solid. Well, and in case all electronics fail, you can really pull them out. You just have to do it like a little bit harder. Then you can see this is like the manual opening. Then inside of the doors, top part here is a little softened up. And then you have this blue GTX trim with red contour stitches. Depending on the exterior color, it looks a little bit weird. It's good to see also blue accentuations, but also to the red exterior color, not sure if that is really fitting. The dashboard here also with some soft touch, and again with this blue layout. But yeah, when the car would be in a maybe white color exterior, that would be looking cool, I think, in this case then. Then you see the digital instruments are kind of integrated with the steering wheel column, soon more to that. Also hashtag capacitive BS buttons at the steering wheel. They're cool, they're easy to clean, but not too good to control while driving. Soon also to the user interface, all the details. Here the seats. You either can get comfort seats or these sport seats. You have the choice. These would then be the ones more suitable for the GTX. Integrated head restraint, microfiber surface, really good quality, outside leatherette. So the seats are animal free completely, and also quite plush and soft. Still they offer side support. As for the steering wheel surface, at this moment still animal skin, but this will change. The ID Buzz now introduced a vegan steering wheel surface. Less animal skin use, of course, also less use of resources, less use of energy and so on, more sustainable from the whole cycle. And the new steering wheels will be introduced in 2023 with the ID3 facelift, and then also all ID5 and ID4 will get the new animal-free steering wheel surface. Then here, lowering it down, in and out, and you can see here how the instruments stay connected with the steering wheel. The whole instruments, they're quite small, and it appears a little bit cheap, I have to say. The only thing you can do here is change something in these digital instruments, like here, left and right, what area do you want to have a little bit bigger, but that's actually it. Why? They focus on the head-up display. Head-up display with speed, allowed speed, and some GPS guidance. Then there's also a function available where you can have this augmented reality in the head-up display. Seating position here in the front, I really like these sport seats with electric controls, and then you have this, support here, especially in that area. At the same time, plush bolstering, so it's really soft to sit on, comfortable and sporty at the same time. Works with tall adults and with 1.89 m or 6'2". Yes, I've grown. Then here a lot of headroom left. There is this fixed panoramic roof, and you can, if you want to block out some more sun, close this shade. Not all EVs have that. This one does, so when you are in a very hot country or hot state, then it does actually work a little better to block out the sun. Takes a while, but you see it's also covering the whole area. Interior overview, really clean layout. However, a lot of high gloss piano lacquer. That's not really that suitable, I think, also at that price point. Then also here, not backlit sliders. No one really likes them, neither for climate nor for the audio. Exclusive information for you, viewer of Autogefühl. The sliders will be backlit. This is in development, and yeah, we're not sure when exactly, probably in 2023. This one here being the updated software version 3.1. The voice assistant, for example, let's try that. Hello ID, I'm cold.
No problem.
There we go.
It will
So
get warmer
yeah,
at the front left shortly.
that works. And then here you can see that in the main menu it is a little bit faster than before, so that's a step forward. However, it will not get my favorite system overall. Here the map, let's see. Yeah, it's somewhat responsive. Is okay. Yeah, I think we've seen better interfaces, but now finally some upgrades they have done. Also here how the visualization is then here inside, that's actually quite good. And now also a little bit more, yeah, just more fluid, I would say. That's German translation. Then Apple CarPlay or Android Auto looks like this. The base sound system, the normal one that is in here, it's actually quite good, but there's also an upgraded one available. But yeah, both have a nice sound actually. Music lovers would get the upgraded sound system then. So overall, also in that size, now somewhat usable. Yeah, just that you have these climate sliders there. There is also a separate climate unit, like a screen. Then you can also have this classic climate where you can control everything. So have it here a little bit bigger, for example. I think you can now at least work with that. Lower middle console, open area. You have these splitters. You don't have to use them. You can also remove them, then have a rather big open area. And then also here you can slide this one here completely or open it. Adaptive cup holders, then either inductive charging pad or two USB-C chargers for your phone. I prefer the cable solution for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto because it's more stable, the phone doesn't get hot and also charges faster. So what about rear seating, and will it be a problem if you compare it to the ID4? Well, you can see here, styling wise, really lovely with these sport seats, microfiber as well, white contrast stitches, kind of like a single seat setup. So visually that looks really amazing. Also, there's no middle tunnel. So using that EV platform, that's of course a good thing. However, what I don't like that much, inside of the doors. First of all, hard pack material here. Then the softer leather right here, that's actually fine. But then once again, oh, more high gloss piano lacquer. Can't we see something else there? Here, legroom also fine for tall adults, that works. And also on the middle part, you can sit, it's soft enough, so this can actually house 5 tall adults, that works. Here in the middle part, you can fold down this, and then you have cup holders, but they are not adaptive though. Let's open that rear hatch, check out the boot or the trunk. 550 up to 1,575 liters, and surprisingly, that's a little bit more than the ID4 in the first figure. It's because, you know, you have a little bit more space in that area here, and that makes the liter figure actually a little bit more, because it's always measured below this cover. Above this cover here, then the ID4 here has a little bit more height. But then the normal length, well usable, 93 like this, 92, 93 centimeters or 36 inches. The width here is a good, almost a meter or 40 inches, so well usable. And the height below the cover is 44 centimeters or 17 inches. So when we take out everything right here, we can also check out what's underneath there. You can store your cable here like this. You can also take out the whole thing to get even more height. That is possible. And underneath that one is another one to be put up, and then you have some more storage right there, maybe for a secondary cable, for example, for like this whole household plug cable. Overall, very well usable, and of course you can also load through things. Yeah, I'm good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, I know you're laughing. It's no problem. We're here for fun, aren't we? So then here, in the total length is 1.65 m or 64 inches. Does it have a frunk? Well, no. So this is on the one hand a disadvantage, but it also does have some advantages. Let me explain that to you. First of all, what you can see here, wiper fluid, for example, then the normal starter battery. Yes, electric vehicles do need that, so the big battery can sleep. This one then activates the big battery and also takes care of some electric consumers inside the vehicle. And here, for example, this is then the air filter box, and it's a good thing that's here actually, because then you can easier change the air filter or also put a dual air filter in there if you have special needs for that. So it also comes with some advantages. You can easier access things actually. However, still for everyday practicability, I think more people would actually want a frunk, not only trunk. frunk. What about you? Tell me in the comments, would you like to see a frunk here? There is some third-party solution coming up to use some of the space, but not sure if this one will make a lot of sense. By the way, interesting also that here these, like kind of bumpers. This is like for safety or for the crash safety. These will actually like crash down or disappear when there's an impact from above. That maybe when like persons flying on the hood. VW ID5 GTX, we put it to the sports mode and acceleration, let's go. Plop, 80 kilometers an hour, that went really quick. All-wheel drive power here, the official figure, slightly uphill here, official figure to 1 kilometer or 62 miles an hour is 6.3 seconds. It's not like exaggerated, you can still sustain that from the G-forces, but still reasonably quick. The entry versions are slower, 10.4 or 8.4 seconds in the acceleration figure than with rear-wheel drive. This one on here, the all-wheel drive model, which also runs under the GTX name, at least in Europe. So far not available in the US, also not for the ID4. They don't call it GTX in the US, I'm not sure why exactly. It's actually a cool brand name, they should also export that to the US, actually also with the design pack and so on and so on. The interesting thing about this one here is we have quite a substantial wheelbase. It's not a very short vehicle, but it still handles like a Golf. It has a lot of weight, yes. You do feel that in corners, but acceleration wise, and also when you want to troll your cameraman, there would have needed a third camera now for me, because he was looking at, what's the camera? And I'm like, yeah, that's really funny. So very spontaneous acceleration already when you are at speed.
Spontaneous but soft.
Yeah, it's not too harsh. Yeah, we've experienced more forceful electric vehicles, definitely. And the handling is really nice with that battery pack that's all placed in the bottom of the vehicle, low center of gravity, and it feels very agile, very cool steering input, very direct, so it's a very crisp drive. You can also check out always, by the way, if we really have that DCC, because here in that individual mode, there we see it, DCC is an option. There you can really fine-tune that suspension in so many different ways. There are also these presets, that's the adaptive suspension, and although we have the biggest 21-inch wheels mounted, Klaus, the head of design, we also had recently an interview with him in the ID bus. He always has like biggest wheels, of course, from design perspective. But comfort-wise, it's always the question, do you lose too much comfort then? But here, I think so far it's quite fine, because the DCC, the adaptive suspension, is doing a good job. You can live with these 20-inch wheels. Of course, usually I would rather tend to recommend a compromise. 20-inch might be a good compromise, which is standard also for the GTX model when you have good looks. At the same time, you still have a little bit more dampening from these tires. But it is really cool to have some slalom effect here. It really handles very, very nicely. It's also good noise insulation. It's reasonably silent in here. With electric vehicles, there's always the problem that there's no engine sound covering some of the background noise. Therefore, you might hear that subjectively more present, but it's a very good noise insulation here. Assistance systems, this one here is equipped with the travel assist, and that means it keeps the distance to the car in front of us. We can also activate then the lane keeping assist, and here you can see, is it smooth or is it more hectic? But so far, very soft steering movements, keeping the car in the lane and also in the distance. Traffic sign recognition. Now you've maybe already seen the car is adjusting the speed here to new 60 kilometers an hour speed limit. So these level 2 autonomous features are working very well. There's also the blind spot monitor in the side mirrors, nice integration. That is also one of the most helpful features. If you would go for the rear-wheel drive model or the all-wheel drive model, I've also tested the Audi Q4 e-tron, both as rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, and they're essentially technologically the same vehicle. And I have to say, the rear-wheel drive models, they have less punch, they have less acceleration power, yes. However, from the driving agility, I do still prefer the rear-wheel drive models. You can then save some money for that, and you get out of the corners a little bit better because the rear spins around a little bit. With that all-wheel drive, you always have then this pulling from the front wheels. It still handles sporty and it still has this rear wheel bias, but you of course have less rear wheel bias then. So although there's more punch, I feel that with the pure rear wheel drive models, you have a sportier, more purist driving feeling, and they're also fast enough, especially if you go for the model with 8.4 seconds in the acceleration figure. So that just as a tip when you say, it was a really cool review with the GTX, but maybe I don't want to spend all the money for the GTX. Will I be happy with the rear wheel drive model? Yes, you will. You will maybe only miss the all-wheel drive when you have a situation where you really need an all-wheel drive, when you have slippery road and so on and so on. It's always weird, right, to get on the wrong side of the road. You always expect oncoming traffic, but the thing is, you should always expect something unexpected. And all our fans from the UK now say finally, for once, Thomas was driving on the right side of the road. So now we're rolling here once again, 60 kilometers an hour. And I've also spent some time on the motorway. It's basically doing the same good job, also good noise insulation wise and so on. The roundabout visibility, if you ask yourself ID4 or ID5, well, to the rear you have this, that is split, so the visibility in the ID4 is a little bit better, but that's not a crucial point at all. I can see who's behind me. That's not a problem. So I think it's rather a question of styling indeed. It even has bigger trunk volume-wise, measured under the cover, as we said earlier. But then that falling roofline, so if you want to transport very high, bulky, box-alike things, that might be an advantage for the ID4. But yeah, driving-wise, there is no difference at all. Well, the thing is, the ID5 here has a little advantage as for the efficiency, because that form here is more aerodynamic, so it will matter more if you hammer the throttle or keep it light. But this one here then, just from the aerodynamics, is a little bit better. But overall, I think the question is really not in how does it drive differently, or is there any practicability, pro or con, but really which one do you prefer styling wise. At the moment we are using Google Maps, by the way, but also if you would use something else in the infotainment system, it will not be my favorite infotainment system of all time, of course not, but here this new software generation, we still don't have backlit sliders here. Yeah, but the system itself, when you want to do something also while driving, it happens faster now. So when you go to this vehicle mode here, for example, everything is going faster, and that's definitely finally a step forward. Recently we've seen the Golf 8 episode with the updated infotainment. There they put in a new infotainment chip plus new software. It's the same chip they have been using here already, just that the the software here was already more complex, therefore it wasn't really helping. Now, with this new software version, it is better. Again, it won't be a great, prize-winning or award-winning infotainment system, but now at least it has some responsiveness as for the speed when you put in things and so on and so on. As for recuperation, basically we have the driving mode, which I set here at the steering wheel, or at that steering wheel stalk column, and here I can switch from D to B. D mode is rather when I leave my foot off the throttle, the car is rolling. B mode is then recuperation, I leave my foot off the throttle, and there's substantial recuperation, not a super harsh one, so that is not aiming to like a Tesla recuperation experience, more like that you want to build a good transition for ICE car customers. Internal combustion engine, of course, if you haven't heard ICE as abbreviation. And I think that's somewhat fine. There's always the question, which one is the best way to do that, to use the regenerative braking? At the end of the day, it won't matter so much. Here in the D mode, for example, I'm just using the brake then if I want to decelerate. And then first recuperation is being used, and if you need more deceleration power, then the real brakes are being applied. And in the B mode, this is done more with lifting the throttle already. And to me, meanwhile, I have to say adaptive recuperation would be a solution. Here in this case, it kind of works with the adaptive cruise control. But to me, adaptive recuperation is good because then the car is rolling when there's no one in front of you, and the car is doing recuperation when there's someone in front of you. As I said, I don't have like a specific mode for that in here, but something like that does happen when you are using the adaptive cruise control, and we'll be showing that to you earlier. So overall, the driving experience is really like, goes like one circle, it's very smooth, everything, all the elements are fitting together. VW shows that hardware-wise, or beautiful bright or turquoise-wise mountain waters here, because a lot of sediments are in there. So they show that they know what they're doing hardware-wise. Software-wise, there has been a lot of failures, definitely. Now they're picking up the game, it is getting better. We hope that they continue on this journey and keep improving the software. But once again, hardware-wise and how it handles and safety ratings, also everything from all the hard facts, this is so well done. And also now that you have this improvement from the fast charging, DC charging now at 135 kilowatt, this is more and more promising. Seating wise, by the way, very nice, very comfortable. You have both seats, that was ID4, both seats available also for the GTX, these comfort seats, or then here these integrated sport seats, which are doing a great job, and are also with the microfiber surface, really premium-like feeling. Also all animal-free surfaces then here for the steering wheel to come, as I said. So really recommend these seats as well, here these sport seats. They keep you tight, at the same time they relieve stress from the lower lumbar area because they keep the weight in the shoulders. So I'm really happy with that overall. And yeah, when you want to do some overtaking maneuvers, by the way, so we're driving a little bit slower than actually allowed, we can actually do that. So this is like a Golf Plus, from a pre-generation or something. Now I'll take my chance. Watch out. Here we go, 100. There we go. So that was really smooth, really quick. And this can also be a safety thing, when you can accelerate really nicely and have some power reserves, then you can, in a quicker way, you can get into the right lane again and you're safe. Here 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour is allowed. Nice winding road right here. And this car indeed really feels very safe. Now off the throttle, I have to help with the brakes, even more recuperation then. And all the time here I wasn't even using the real brakes at all. There is a very nice brake blending here in this vehicle. What does it mean? You do not feel the transition between the normal recuperation and the real brakes that are being applied. So once again, that speaks in that direction. Hardware-wise, so well done, this vehicle. Yeah, but what about the final consumption and That of course then also calculates the real world range for that 77 kWh net battery. Final consumption, electric range for today. Good conditions, quite warm, not too cold, and also rather steady speeds, some acceleration, and then we can score a rather ideal consumption and range. Here, 19 kWh on 100 kilometers, so that's some 30 kWh on 100 miles, means quite exactly 400 kilometers electric range or 250 miles. It will be less in very cold winter times, although this one does feature a heat pump, but still will be less than range. Or if you like really, hammer it through with high speed and so on. Well, part of my job is also improvising, for example, also cleaning the car with water from the river, because on this off-road tour, it's really dirty, but we want to get some nicer shots for you, right? Well, I'm not afraid to do the dirty work myself, or the tidy work in this case, right? So this is Autogefühl with Thomas, and the VW ID4 Pro 4Motion is a new all-wheel drive version. What's the logic behind that? Well, usually you get rear-wheel drive as base and then optional all-wheel drive. In the US, you directly get the strongest all-wheel drive version that looks like this. In the EU, you get the top GTX version with similar horsepower, but then it looks sportier. And now there's this version with the normal look on the exterior with a little bit less all-wheel drive power. So the GTX in Europe and the US all-wheel drive version around 6 seconds in the acceleration figure, whereas this one here is at 7 seconds, and then an all-wheel drive model would be at 8.5. Let's dig into the details. You can see here the closed front grille, today one in black. So pretty cool look, especially then because the lights up here goes all the way across the vehicle. This is a very cool design feature, and the retro VW logo. And towards the side profile, yes, we've cleaned at least this side here, not the other one, but don't tell anyone. You can get different wheel sizes, of course. These here are in this case 20 inch. These are the biggest 20-inch wheels, and 4 meters 58 or 180 inches is the length here. There's also the ID5, which would be the one then with the cut-off roof here, this coupe style. The ID4, a little bit more upright here, and this detail then is a little bit more prominent. In the rear, my favorite feature is this light strip, once again across the vehicle, and the three-dimensional taillight, which is an option, by the way, the same as the matrix LED is an option. You start with base lamps here. And you can see, other than that, it's a rather conservative rear, but I think a very consistent design here overall. Top speed is 180 kilometers an hour or 112 miles per hour. And the battery size, 77 kilowatt hours net. Recharging actually, goes here with the flap, is officially 135 kilowatt peak, but there are higher peak figures available. They calculate in a conservative way. And 36 minutes from 5 to 80% state of charge, so they're not on top of the charging game, that's for sure. Range, however, something always approximately 400 kilometers or 250 miles with that battery here, and it depends really on the outside temperature. There will soon be a software upgrade to the 3.2 version, and then they have also worked a little bit more on the efficiency in cold temperatures, like we have here in Iceland. It doesn't look like this, but it's really cold here, believe me, just not here at noon. And this would have been the dark side of the vehicle, or the dirty side. Interior-wise, my favorites, these seats here, beautiful seats. There are different seats available, either with fabric or here then there's the microfiber trim. On the US models you also get a full leatherette trim. So the whole interior will be 100% animal-free soon. Steering wheel not yet, but since the ID Buzz also gets the leather-free steering wheel, this will also be introduced and with a model year changed very soon. So they're heading in the right direction right there. Just not with the hashtag capacitive BS buttons at the steering wheel. They are backlit, but still it's always hard to press them while driving, and sometimes when you have your hand here, then you activate the volume plus button just by mistake or something. That's not too good actually. Gear switcher is right here. Soon going to show you the instruments, and look at that styling here. this is styling I would prefer. Just the black here, white contrast stitches, and then also here around the screen and so on. This is then this aluminum style and not the black piano lacquer we have here and here. With the GTX models, for example, we had this combination sometimes that this was blue and wasn't really fitting to the red or something, but here this is a more subtle look, the one I would go for. What do you think? Here the digital instruments, since the 3.1 software update, you also have the energy consumption right here in the instruments and not only in the infotainment system. That's actually quite good. Other than that, you cannot change too much here. You can, for example, change the the ACC, and here the view like this, maybe left or right, a little bit bigger, but usually you would leave it like this. And here in this vehicle, we also have the 3.2 software status, and they had put this one there. There is 3.2.0, and it mainly contains bug fixes, so for performance and also less failures and so on. Visually, not so much has been done. You can see this is the car internal map here on beautiful Iceland. Yeah, it's really a very, very cool place. This is really cool. And this is here the
Thomas.
Apple. Yes, Michelle?
Is Iceland a cool place?
Yes, Iceland is a cool place. Thank you. Yeah, now everyone got the joke. Thank you so much. This one is the Apple CarPlay integration. Whatever it is. Yeah, this is the new view then for the Apple CarPlay and so on. So overall, it's not my favorite software still. This is the AC unit, because here you either can control it like this, or then with these sliders from below. They are still not backlit. This is supposed to come with the facelift that they will get the backlit. But other than that, it's not that easy to control it while driving. It's now with less failures and less bugs. That's good, but still not the best infotainment system overall, of course. In the rear, we have plenty of legroom, no problem for tall adults, 1.89 m or 6'2", and also headroom is close but works. And you can also open that. Yeah, there's some beeping because the ignition is on. Here, this is then the panoramic roof, and it is fixed and it has this shade. That's very good when it's hot. That's very important, and you can move around freely here. It's a free tunnel here, so there's no middle tunnel at all, because they're using that EV platform. So the rear actually gets, yeah, top-notch rating indeed from the comfort and the space you have here. And the trunk at 540 liters, and this is here our traveling luggage, and you can see that fits very well, no problem. Some space for charging cables here underneath. Welcome to the driving lounge, sport mode, acceleration, and let's go. Plop, that was 0 to 90 kilometers an hour. You also heard the bottle on Michel's side flying around from the G-force. Pretty quick. You know, this ID4 Pro 4Motion, that's how it's marketed in Europe, is acceleration-wise between the rear-wheel drive model and the top all-wheel drive model. Once again, in Europe we have the GDX as top all-wheel drive model with around 6 seconds in the acceleration figure, and in the US that would be the normal all-wheel drive model, which has the GTX spec acceleration-wise, and this one here around 7 seconds, so a second slower, not the top horsepower tune. It's just tune, you know, it's just software tune, and it doesn't have the GTX exterior, you know, so from the visuals and comparable to the US model on the outside. This one, when you want the all-wheel drive performance, maybe a little bit soft off-roading, better for towing in the back and so on. So pretty interesting concept. And acceleration, it's enough, it's pretty quick and also very smooth acceleration. You always have a rear axle bias because the motor at the rear axle is stronger. And when we're driving normally here now, we also have more power from the rear, and the front motor is just active when it's really needed on demand, for example in a harsh acceleration. There is a normal suspension or the adaptive suspension, DCC. Here in this all-wheel drive model you don't have the sporty setup. You can go for a sporty setup, however optional, or then if you go for the GTX model, which you can get in Europe. So these are, different options you have then with these. When you are rather traveling, like this, rather straight and so on, you rather go back then to the comfort mode. If you have a DCC, then you also feel a difference. How do you know if you have it? When you're inside the car and you don't know. When you're here on individual, then you can check out, here I have the DCC settings, so this vehicle here is equipped with the DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control, which is the adaptive suspension. Controlling that while driving, you see, is very critical. So here, mode button, and then I have to pick it here, and it's not too easy to do. When you're standing still, no problem, but controlling this vehicle while driving, user interface wise, is really not the best. Or for example, resetting the trip meter, I have to go here, data, and then zero it out, for example. That works because I know it, but some things you have to know. This one here being this new software version, which is a little bit more responsive, a little bit quicker now, at least. And I think it's also good that we have now the consumption figure, or the energy consumption figure, here in the info, in the instruments. It's also a helpful and nice thing to do. The general hardware of this vehicle is really awesome. You also have very good comfort. This adaptive suspension especially is doing a good job combining sportiness and comfort. That's really nice. And I think to go for this all-wheel drive model, which is then basically the all-wheel drive model spec in the US almost, is also a clever choice. I think the GTX is not necessarily needed. Not everyone wants the very sporty character of the GTX. It's still a good compromise of sportiness and comfort, but here then a little bit more comfort, precise steering input, and indeed here when we are going also some waves here, everything is evened out very well. At the same time, the car is not leaning too much to the sides, so it's a very, very nice traveling feeling. They have also worked on the efficiency in cold times, cold temperatures here with the recent update, with the recent software update 3.2. And however, let's say it doesn't give us overall the best range on the market, but also not a bad one. So this 400 kilometers, 250 miles is always quite realistic. In slower driving, or maybe like up to 100 kilometers, 60 miles an hour and so on, and not too cold, you can score some 20 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers or even less. That you're more like in a 25 kilowatt hours on 100 miles region or something. But when it's cold and you drive a little bit faster, then it's also more in a region of 22 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, and then you're rather getting less than 400 kilometers or less than 250 miles. But that's something you can approximately calculate with here at the moment. Also, once again, around 20 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, which is indeed a rather realistic figure for this vehicle. So you feel that hardware-wise and handling-wise, driving-wise, all the experience they have from decades of work on these vehicles really play a major role. And software-wise, finally, picking up the game. They have been late to that game, to the software game. At least there are improvements which you also profit from while driving. And now some soft off-roading. We can also go to this traction mode, and everything from the all-wheel drive and the traction system is optimized for some loose ground. And the good thing here is we still have that rear wheel bias, so that's also then more fun while soft off-roading, for example. And I mean, it's not the most super off-road capable vehicle, but due to the all-wheel drive you can get through some loose terrain, and it also doesn't have the lowest ground clearance. You should just not go then for the sports suspension, because that's a little bit lower, and keep it then with the original one here. And once again, also the suspension is playing a good job here, because we also have a lot of potholes here then in this case, and still there's decent comfort while driving. It is really a lot of fun to drive this vehicle. It doesn't look the most from the exterior, but it feels actually sportier than it looks because of the low center of gravity. That's really a cool thing. As for recuperation, by the way, it's also worth talking about that here. When you have the D mode, it's just rolling all the time, and when you press the brake pedal, hardly anything is happening in the very first area, and that can be irritating, and sometimes you're braking too late, so you have to get used to it. You really have to press the brake harder. First all the recuperation is being used, and then the real brakes set in. In the B mode, however, when I get off the throttle, then there's stronger deceleration, and especially in the ID4, ID5, this is to me the better setting because it prevents this, loose of feeling, so to speak. Because again, yeah, I think when you're just hitting the brake pedal just a little bit now, hardly anything is happening. And it happened to me now twice during this tour here that I was braking a little bit too late, although I was already braking, I was already on the brake pedal, but hey, why nothing is happening? And then I had to brake harder than intended. So I think brake pedal setting here not the most ideal, but when you leave it in the B mode, that you have a little bit more recuperation, I think that is definitely a better setting than here. It's very cool here on Iceland. Wow, so beautiful. But here you can see good traction also from these tires, and also when I hit the accelerator pedal, due to that all-wheel drive, loose ground, but still hardly any wheel spin because it's evenly distributed. It's more power sent to the front wheels. Beautiful small river here as well. That small bridge, very impressive. Such a great landscape here on Iceland. You should definitely pay a visit if you have time to at some point. Just have to calculate that the weather we have here now is very uncommon. Usually there's much more bad weather, so we're extremely lucky this time, definitely. Let me do one more off-road acceleration and see if there's no one behind me, because then we can see again when I really hit it all the way out. There, perfect traction. Now the difference is when I go to the sport mode, let's see, with that loose ground. Yeah, maybe you've heard and also seen it here in the instruments. Had some wheel spin there and also put some dust in the air. So this is very interesting. So well done in that traction mode. Then especially the acceleration is basically reduced a little bit, that I don't have any wheel spin. So that's very interesting how you can just electronically adjust that. And also one of the reasons that electric all-wheel drives are actually very, very good. So they do a great job. It's not that you need these mechanical links and so on. Here's no mechanical link between the front and the rear axle. That's actually perfectly fine. You can do so much with this all-wheel drive, even in harder terrain. It's just, of course, at some point you would lack the real ground clearance. So the basic all-wheel drive model, I think, is way to go here for the ID4 and the ID5. You don't really need the GTX. This one here already has enough acceleration. And also styling-wise, I think the normal pack is to me also a little bit more likable. Also from the interior here with the more subtle colors. So probably we've tested the version here today that you should actually go for.
So first of all, we have to say they are all kinda similar indeed. The Terramar and the Tiguan. It does not really matter that much which one you pick, honestly. I would rather compare it at a dealer. But I feel that both of these are, so to speak, the most sophisticated ones, especially if you compare them against the Formentor and the T-Roc. There you feel a segment difference indeed. So for the Formentor and the T-Roc, they very often give very good leasing deals, but indeed, for example, Terramar and Tiguan are more silent on the motorway, better insulated and so on. And also from the suspension, they give you a more sophisticated feeling in driving. So Terramar and Tiguan would be, let's say, the most premium choices here in this comparison. However, Formentor and T-Roc are a little bit more fun to drive each. But both of these SUV pairs come very, very close. I would just check it out at the dealer, maybe where you get a better price or if you like the styling more. Also, Leon versus Golf. This is somewhat the same story. They feel very similar in driving. Gotta say that these two are the most fun here to drive, definitely. So if you like to drive sporty, they feel so direct and light. I really loved driving these ones. I think you can also see that in the review. Cupra Tavascan versus ID5, ID4. Well, gotta say that the Tavascan is rather an ID5 sibling because it also has this coupe-like styling. The interior is kind of dramatic in the styling. If that's okay for you, or if you prefer that, then it would be the Tavascan. Other than that, it would also do very well with the ID5 or ID4. Here I think the VW models probably will soon have better leasing deals because the Tavascan is built in China and also goes under these special taxes and so on. It's really hard for Cupra to keep up very good deals and prices and so on as for that respect. And indeed it might be an argument if you want to have a car that is built in Germany, so then you would rather go for the ID5 or the ID4. But overall, I really have to say, it doesn't matter that much which one of these pairs you're going for. It's more a design decision, exterior and interior, and rather a decision between these individual pairs. For example, if you think about a Terramar or Tiguan, or a Formentor or a T-Roc, between these two pairs, so to speak. Terramar and Tiguan, most sophisticated. Formentor and T-Roc, best price performance, so to speak. They usually give the best deals and so on, a little bit more fun to drive. Most fun to drive, Leon and Golf definitely, and the electric pairs, of course, the Tavascan, ID5, ID4. They are heavier in weight, that's why the lighter combustion engine models are definitely more fun to drive, but of course, if you want to go electric, these ones are the ones to go for. And overall, well, which one would I take? Yeah, I mean, for driving fun, a Leon VZ or a Golf R is the ultimate thing to go for. So I would pick one of these for the driving fun, with the Leon here as the variant, basically, sports tourer called there. You can also, of course, get the Golf R variant, so the estate model is also available there. I like that the Leon in both versions has the longer wheelbase, whereas the Golf has short wheelbase as hatch, the longer wheelbase only as the variant. And then for the more sophisticated choice, more space and so on, I would rather go for Terramar or Tiguan. Yeah, and then overall, if you ask me, yeah, I would prefer to have like, for example, like a Leon VZ 333 horsepower variant or something like that as the sporty choice. And I think then Terramar for the more sophisticated choice to drive around and so on. Why would I go for the Cupras each? Well, I mean, there's not much difference, honestly, yes. But of course, they bring you a little bit more spice in the styling, so to speak. So they are a little bit more fun to look at from the exterior and the interior. But maybe you rather want the more conservative design from the VWs, then it's of course also fine. So which one would you go for? Tell me in the comments. And yeah, my choice for the day, Terramar and Leon. Really hard to pick between these because they're kinda different. So yeah, better to take both, right?